Ever mattered to the Democrat Party. Black votes always have. They have created systems that we cannot get out of. The welfare system was meant to do what it has done to our families. It has decimated our communities. The single motherhood rate in the 1960s was at 23%. Today, the single motherhood rate is 74% in the black community. They incentivized that. They removed the black father from the home because they knew that once you break down the family, you can control the youth that are growing up. They gave us hip-hop. They gave us the media. They didn't give us the facts. They lied to us in school. They told us that the Republican and the Democrat Party switched. That never happened, okay? One person switched parties. Nobody else did. They create this narrative every 4 years that the Republicans are racist. They try to scare us. Are we such punks that we are so scared to try something different? Because every 4 years they knock for our votes and they say, vote for us because the other guy is racist. Vote for us because the other person is racist. It is time for us to stand up for our community boldly, to look the Democrat Party in the eye and tell them that you are going to fight for our votes. Listen to this, and this is something that you all need to know. If the Democrats do not get more than 85% of the black votes, their party is finished. Okay? They rely upon us. We have never relied upon them. They have always relied upon us. This is the time for us to stand up in our communities and to fix them, to stand next to one another. Words like Uncle Tom, house Negroes, house slaves, those were created by leftists to make sure that we are constantly at war with one another. It is time for us to stand up against that and to stand together. This is our time. Make America great again is for us too. We are Americans first and foremost. We have been in this country since 1619, before any other immigrant group. When he says he's going to make America great, I don't get scared because I'm about as American as it gets.
All right. We are back for another episode of the Tempo Show, man. All right, so we are going to talk about conservatism in the black community. We're gonna piggyback off of that particular video. There was a lot of points that I agree with in that one. Not all, but definitely a lot of points, man. We got my man Will up in here. He's back.
What's good, y'all?
What's going on? What's going on? So first thing is first. What issues did you have with that particular video right there?
Well, let me first start with what I agree with.
Okay.
I definitely agree that the Democratic Party has become very, very stagnant when it comes to getting the black vote. And I felt this even during the Obama administration. It's something that I've been bashed for. I've been fairly outspoken about Obama. I'm not a conservative. Let me state that for the record.
Neither am I.
I'm not a conservative. I would say I'm liberal. I'd like to think of myself as fairly progressive, but I do feel that's my main issue with the Democratic Party is the fact that they are stagnant when it comes to us.
When you say stagnant, what are you referring to?
I feel like there has been, and this is my opinion, and
obviously,
it may not be as well educated, or not necessarily educated, but in terms of what can be done or what should have been done. I feel like over the past, specifically during the Obama administration, the number one social issue. Okay, let's put it this way. When Obama first got into office, the number one issue that he had to tackle for America was the economy.
Right.
When he got into office, we just gotten out of George Bush and the tremendous decline of the housing market, the automobile market, everything had crashed. So Obama's number one priority was to fix the economy, and he did that. He reversed it to a certain degree. At least that's what I see. However, when I'd say around 2010, 2011, the primary issue in America then became the police outrage against blacks in the community. I'm not gonna say it was the national.
I mean, if you were going about like as far as the prime issue, it seemed like the prime issue for the Obama administration after that was LGBT rights.
Oh,
I mean, as far as legislation, that was
and I agree with that. But I'm saying in terms of a social, what was in front of our face on a consistent basis, it was Trayvon Martin. It was a number of, I mean, name after name after name after name after name, consistently throughout Obama's entire second term, his entire second term. And there was little to nothing done to even address that on a policy level.
Right.
Now, what could be done? That may be a little bit over my head. But I feel like, and this is something that it may be a little out there, but it was something that Bernie Sanders actually mentioned when he was running. He said federal, whenever there is specifically a high-profile racial shooting by a police officer, there would be federal. Basically, the feds would look into that as well. It wouldn't just be dealt with on a state or local level, because that's what we continue to see when it came to dealing with that. That's what we still continue to see when it comes to dealing with these issues that are still present in our community.
Okay.
So how feasible that is, I can't really say, but it's an idea that I feel like maybe should have been mentioned by the Obama administration, because again, for all of his second term, that was the leading social issue.
Okay. Let's bring it back around to conservative, because there's a lot there. There's a lot. Mostly, I mean, I think I agree with all of that statement, but I want to bring it back to the issue of conservatism and what was actually said in that particular video. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. All right, so for me, right, all right, there was a lot of things that I absolutely agree with. Now, as far as Candace Owens, the personality, I think that she does have some good things to say, but I also, you already know, I'm about balance. Yeah. And I think that her idea of kind of going against what Democrats and what liberalism and progressivism was pushing, like she got so starched by it that she just went in a totally other radical direction. Yeah. So that's the one thing I do disagree with. Mm-hmm. Now specifically that particular video, I do absolutely agree with the fact that number one, the Democratic Party has relied on our vote
absolutely
for ages.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And one of the biggest problems is that, like, as black people have been voting Democrat, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like the problems in our community still face us. And there hasn't, I mean, if you look at all the cities that are democratically, like overarchingly democratically run, those are some of the most highest crime rate cities. Those are somewhere where black people are struggling the most. So our tendency to vote Democrat, for me, you know what I'm saying, is a little bit rough. Like, I do agree with the fact that they don't automatically deserve our vote. Shout out to what Jerron was talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jerron, he commented and he said, why should the black community side with any political party? And I totally agree.
I
totally agree, because I don't think that we have to necessarily vote Republican, but I think that we should, like other groups do, vote for people that have our actual interests at heart. And for a long time, the Democratic Party has said that they've had our interests at heart. Mm-hmm. But what we continue to see is an administration that does a lot of talk, but doesn't necessarily make the changes that we need for our community to prosper. You know what I'm saying?
And I absolutely agree with that. And to that point, I think it was, or I know it was a political comedian, Lewis Black, who said, and I believe,
hey, pass me that Jose, cuz.
I do believe I have the parties correct when I say he stated a while back. He said the Republican Party is a party of bad ideas. The Democratic Party is a party of no ideas.
And that's and look, and that's one of the rough things. Or I don't necessarily think that it's a party of no ideas. I think it's a party of
we're not them.
of basically unapplicable ideas. And so shout out Mike Davis. He said, "Why what we can't do is sit on the sidelines," and I totally agree.
Absolutely.
I'm not advocating sitting on the sidelines and just absolutely like not voting at all, because I think that's counterproductive. But so you had some disagreements about what was said in that particular video. So what were those disagreements that you had?
The disagreement I primarily had was that primarily she made it sound like the Republican Party was the answer. And I absolutely do not agree with, because they have consistently shown two things. They're a party not for us, but they have shown that they're a party for the rich white patriarchy. Let's be honest.
All right. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
No. I mean that's basically where it stands. They're a party for white men who have money. That's what it's consistently.
Well,
proving.
this is all right. So number one, you already understand. Like for me, I don't necessarily agree that the idea of patriarchy itself. But like obviously that's a different topic. But let's just explain what conservatism really is. All right. So So the differences between liberalism and conservatism is conservatives typically believe that, and now mind you, this is the difference. There's Republican, then there's conservative, right?
True.
Conservative is the idea that conservatives typically believe in borders, right? Borders within that, within whatever it is that you're talking about. They are people that like to keep the status quo. Right, and also they believe in tradition, things that have to do with tradition. You know what I'm saying? Like traditional values, things that we have established. Like conservatives like to keep everything in the box, and whatever's working. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to change it. You know what I'm saying?
But see, that's where I have the issue, because working for who?
Right.
Because it's never worked for us. It's never worked for Black people. It's never worked for women. It's never worked for LGBT up until the Obama administration.
Now, all right, but let me just finish out as far as what the difference is between conservatism and liberalism.
Okay.
And then liberalism is the idea of progression, where we come with, like, let's say, new ideas, right? Like ideas that don't follow the status quo and are all about change, right? That we need to change the old ideas that we need to change the way that we're moving in almost all aspects, right? And so that's I mean, like the whole idea of progressivism is to have new ideas and change, right? And so this is why we have in our community, I think we have associated conservatism with the actual Republican Party, where they are typically based, but the idea of conservatism is something that I think that a lot of Black people and us have. Like, there's a lot of Black people, right, who believe in traditional marriages. Like, you could talk about, right, who believe in the essential family structure, who want things, who think that the way that things are, we should try to keep things as what they say. We should be weary of change, because we understand that all change isn't good, right? And so one of the biggest problems with conservatism is you'll have, like, some of the worst aspects of conservatism would be, like, obviously Nazi Germany, right?
Yeah.
Strict, very orderly, very based on conservatism, right? Then we have ideas of that and it can be the other extreme, like with Marxism and communism. You know what I'm saying? Where the idea is we need to change everything, and as we know, right?
Neither works.
Right, there needs to be a balance in between the middle, right? Because motherfuckers forget, right? Let's talk about the crime bill real quick. Just real quick. Oh yeah, I got you. But let's talk about the crime bill. The crime bill was originally backed by Black people overwhelmingly, because in the 90s there was a crime epidemic that was going on, obviously because of the crack era, obviously because social policies that were not protecting our community. So we voted for the crime bill. And I'm using that as an example because people think that when you just enact legislation, like, there are not going to be any consequences to that.
Very much so.
Right. And so we were all for it, right? Because that was Bill Clinton's era. We were all for it. And so one of the basic things that taught us is that there are going, no matter what legislation that you pass, there are going to be consequences to to any legislation that's overarching and passing. So the crime bill, it was supposed to be set up, designed to lock up repeat offenders. You know what I'm saying? And kind of stop the crime that was going on in the black community. And what it did was, one of the consequences of that was it started locking up it started locking up people for bullshit. Yeah. And motherfuckers like the main motherfuckers that real life were what do you call it? Like that caught the brunt of it were people that just made mistakes and we're getting locked up for an extended period of time. So we got to be wary. I think that conservatism and liberalism, it both have its places, and in order to try to create a just society. And I don't think going too extreme with liberalism is not the way, and going too extreme with conservatism. There's a dialogue. We need both
absolutely.
of that, because we need to be weary of extra change, right? And because we don't want to destabilize society, but we also need to address some of the problems that's going on.
Right. And see, that's where neither party has it right. That's where neither and again, that's where I disagree with that video, because number one, and again, you may be more educated on this than me, or someone out there may be more educated on this than me.
Well, guaranteed. Somebody
somebody watching may be more educated on it than me. But she mentioned how, the breakdown of the family structure from the 60s, 70s, 80s, when the welfare system was moving fathers out. And that's ultimately what broke down one of the things that broke down the black family. Now, while I absolutely agree that was a catalyst for that,
a contributing factor.
Yeah. To me, and this is just me thinking as a black man, if it came down to the fact that, we're just getting out of a civil rights era, we're no longer segregated, which means they have to let me work with them or work for them, they're always going to still, even though it's now legal, you have to remember, at that time, we had very little, what's the law that I'm thinking of, where you have to like almost like the Rooney Rule in real life. Where you have to
Well, basically the Rooney Rule is basically you have to interview black coaches, but the reality is kind of the way that they enacted it. It's basically people just interviewing coaches without any black coaches without any real intention on hiring them. Yeah. And so you're just getting people coming through to get interviewed when they know they're not gonna get hired for the job.
Right. But it was, and I'm trying to think of what that is in actual society. Affirmative action. Thanks, Mike. Yes, affirmative action. Like, this was before affirmative action was actually implemented. So from what I can see with what her argument was, black fathers just decided to choose welfare over their family.
I don't think that's what she was suggesting. I think she was suggesting that the actual welfare state incentivize the family structure to be, the family structure to not include the male. You know what I'm saying? And which it did. The reality is that because you can't get on, you have to put the father on child support. Right. You know what I'm saying? In order for you to receive any benefits, like you need to. It was a systematic thing that was done
to break it down, and that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, I can't see a black father selecting that as an option unless he had no other choice.
But it's not about the black father. You X'd him out of the entire equation.
That's what I'm saying. So you mean to tell me if I'm a black father and I have family, and I have a family, and I'm saying, okay, I can't get a job because it's the 60s and 70s. I'm a black man just in these streets. They're not hiring me, even though now they should be, and I can't feed my family. So what option do I have but to leave if the government is willing to give me these things or give my family these things?
But all right, so you're not really making the point against what she said, because what she said was this was a program that was instituted to foster an environment where the black fathers were no longer allowed to be a part of the situation.
Okay, and I absolutely agree with that. What I'm saying is, and here's her argument. It's a half an argument. And the reason I say that is because, yes, that was a policy that was implemented by the Democratic Party. But what was the Republican alternative? That's what I'm saying. What was the Republican alternative? You can't just say because this wasn't good for one party that the other party is the way to go. You have to give.
I agree.
And you have to give a good alternative, and I think that's where the issue comes in nowadays with black people in voting in general, because we're finding no good alternatives. We're just finding again bad ideas or no ideas.
And this is the thing when it comes to alternative, and that's the whole thing. Even from a temperamental standpoint, conservatives aren't built to make new ideas. They're built to preserve. They're built to preserve the ideas that are already enacted. So, and liberals are really the ones who, they say that conservatives run businesses well and liberals create businesses. You know what I'm saying? And so that's really one of the main things on that. But to kind of give it some context, the reality is that the system was not set up itself for black people at all. It was really the whole welfare and state was created like going even further back into the 1920s and 30s when the Great Depression.
Help agriculture down in the South.
Well, not just agriculture. Like there was a whole section as there weren't any jobs available and the banking institutions had collapsed. There weren't jobs that were available for Midwestern states.
That's what I'm saying.
And so they needed some type of placement in order to kind of hold up the economy. Because I mean, at the end of the day, most of the people that are on welfare, let's just put it out there. Most of the people that are on welfare are white people.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you go into states like Montana and North Dakota and things of that nature.
Even in the Midwest, if you go to Mississippi, Alabama, you go to those more.
Exactly. There aren't many jobs out there. So in order for these people not to leave the states, because if you didn't create something where they could actually have an incentive to stay, then these people were just going to
Chicago,
they would move.
Detroit,
they would move. They're going to move in droves to other places. So I want to kind of stick on the point. So one of the biggest points is that one of the biggest things that she was talking about in that particular video was the idea that the Democratic Party we have been voting with them, talking about in the 90th percentile across history and across geographic location within the United States. So there needs to be some type of change in order for us to try to get some type of different result, because like that's the idea. If you do the same thing, you know what I'm saying, and expect a different result, you must be crazy.
Absolutely. Now here's the issue that I have with that. Take the 2016 election as that. I caught a ton of flack. Me and you have debated about that election in a whole different conversation, but the choice ultimately came down to Trump or Hillary. And I will admit this on air. I got to the voters box and I was like, fuck, I gotta vote for Hillary because Trump is fucking crazy. I did not want to vote for Hillary. I was Team Bernie up until he lost the Democratic primary. Yeah. We debated about that.
I mean, Bernie got fucking screwed. But at the end of the day, I didn't vote for Bernie too because some of his ideas are radical and don't make economic sense.
But and that's fine. He could have worked that out how he worked it out, or he wouldn't have. Either way. Mm-hmm. But and that's gonna lead me into another point later on in this convo. But I literally got to the ballot box and it was like either Trump or Hillary. I'm damn sure not voting for Trump, but my conscience would not allow me to vote for Hillary because I firmly believe, and this is what I said to you about it.
So it's really like, whose fault was it? It was really Hillary's. It was really Hillary's fault why she lost the election.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there was like the amount of corruption that was surrounding her, the amount of identity politics that she played. Led to a fact where there was a lot of Democrats that really just didn't show up to vote in key states.
I will tell you exactly why she lost in a second, but I wound up voting for Jill Stein. And I knew it was a throwaway vote, but I literally got to the ballot box and was like, I can't just hand this woman my vote.
She should have put Bernie on the ticket. Mike said she should have put Bernie on the ticket. Yeah. That would have solidified it.
There'll
be no Trump if she put Bernie on the ticket.
That absolutely
no doubt about it. like
here's why, in my opinion, here's why Hillary lost. If you go back to even the 2008 election, we started seeing more of the, and I just looked this up. After the Gen X, it was the Gen. It wasn't yet millennials.
It's something else. But go ahead.
Like ex-millennials or something. That's our generation. We wound up in what we're looking for. We are a progressive generation, whether we want to admit it or not. We are a progressive generation. We want to know, even if we're gonna be like, all right, well, whatever. We'll stick with your general idea, but you have to be moving forward in one way or the other. And that's where Hillary lost a lot of the vote, because if you look back at the 2008 election with Obama, his literal campaign was change. He was like, I'm going to change shit. I'm coming in to change shit. Like, so people were like, okay, he said, I'm going to come in, I'm going to fix the economy. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure this is good, that's good. It was a progressive ticket versus what the status quo had been opposite. Not just the fact that he was a black man. It was the fact that he ran on a progressive ticket because he got a lot of the white female vote. But now, that being said, fast forward to 2016, you have Trump, who actually ran on a fairly progressive Republican ticket. He basically was like, whatever Obama did, I'm going to do the exact opposite, and I'm going to build a wall. He was like, I'm going to do shit that nobody's ever even thought of or nobody's ever even wanted to do just because this is my ideology. And that's what got him a vote. It was the fact that it was progressive in the other direction. Hillary ran on, we're going to keep things just the way they are, and I'm not him.
Number one, she was a terrible candidate. But like,
you literally fought for that candidate.
I did. I mean, because of the options that were given. Now, like, this is what and if we're talking about what one of the biggest problems is that I think that this whole idea, like, the progressivism has gotten out of control. And this is what I'm saying. This is one of the reasons why I know I'm getting to the parts where we disagree. You know what I'm saying? It's because this is where progressivism had gotten out of control. Because now we've developed this affinity for not only socialism, but the idea of to me, postmodernism, right? And so this is the problem that you get with postmodernism and identity politics fused in with the Marxist doctrine. So the idea that we're all made, like the world is fundamentally made up of oppressed and oppressors, is an idea that's really pernicious to the point where you have people getting into sides instead of pulling together. And so not only that, the postmodernism that I was talking about, that I feel like some of your ideas are based in, that this idea that there's an infinite number of facts so everybody can have their own truth.
I'm not going to say that, but when it comes to progressivism, what people honestly want, they just want better. They want wherever I currently am, I want better. And in politics, that's what you want, a candidate who's going to be able to provide you better than where you are.
Right, but that's one scale of it, because at the end of the day, like we also need to appreciate for things that we have. One of the things that, like, when you look at some of the statistics, right, and I'm not a person that's advocating where we shouldn't do change, but when you look at the statistics, if you make over $32,000 a year, my bad, let me like this real quick. But if you make over $32,000 a year, you realize you're in the 1% of the world.
Yes,
right.
If you make $32,000 a year, it's still hard to feed your family in America. It doesn't affect. No doubt.
See, but this is the part about it. So, but absolutely, I'm absolutely agreeing with that. The only problem is that what I think we lose is our own responsibility. This is where I feel like I can become a libertarian, because I feel like that it's our responsibility to be able to work in this world and be able to develop our own ideas and be able to make ourselves successful. And a lot of times we look for the government the government needs to change this so shit could be easier for me. You know what I'm saying? And to me, like that's not taking full responsibility for your life. One thing that I've fucking stayed on is that nobody owes you shit.
Your mom don't
owe you shit. Your family don't owe you shit. Nobody owes you anything. If you were alive and physically able at the age of 18, then it is your responsibility to make whatever you can out of this life happen.
I would absolutely agree with that if we were all on an even keel. But for 500 plus years, black people in America have been working up. You can't deny that fact.
I don't deny that fact at all.
So how you can't blame us for saying, yo, give me a little help here, considering the fact that I built this motherfucker.
I agree, and I'm not even.
And that's and if you look at and that's just on a mass scale. If you look at individuals, you can't blame people for saying, yo, I've had a hard time because of this situation. I've had a hard time because of that situation that was out of my control. I mean, one of the hugest things that we struggle with as in this generation is student loan debt. Yes, we decided, okay, yeah, we want to go to college, but that's because the dream was passed on from our parents who worked their fingers to the bone, who most of whom didn't have a college degree. They told us the only way to not work as hard as I work is to go to college. Not knowing that as soon as we got that degree, it'd be worth dick.
Your degrees, you already know. I got my degree in public relations, and I'm driving buses out here. I don't even have my
degree, and it took me. I'm 31 years old. I just got my first real job at what, 29?
And I'm 30 years old right here, and I've been driving buses, and my particular degree fucking doesn't. It hasn't helped me in the slightest.
I'm saddled with $60,000 worth of debt for a degree I don't even have.
I absolutely.
So for me to feel like, yo, like this is something.
But whose fault? Whose fault is that?
I'm not gonna say.
But that's key. That's key. We're talking about whose fault is that, because if we're talking about taking responsibility, number one, yes, the educational system did not set us up to be successxul in the climate that we're in now.
Okay, that's a step back.
You were talking about your college. You were talking about college.
Let's put everything.
But you also didn't major, and this is the part where I
majored in finance.
You majored in finance, right? But that's not the majors that have been that are economically viable.
Okay.
The majors that are economically viable are STEM. Exactly.
And education.
Science, technology.
That's not even education.
No, not education.
You're guaranteed
STEM,
to always have a
technology.
job in education if you get a degree in education. You can always go anywhere and become a teacher.
Of course, but we know, but exactly. But you can become a teacher.
No money. But
exactly. But that's your fault, right? Is that not your fault for majoring in a discipline that doesn't make any money? Whose fault is that?
Okay, let me explain something to you. I can explain to you. Walking all through my school of business and economics, I firmly remember they had a price list of what you can graduate with and what type of job you can get. Mm-hmm. With a degree in finance, I was fully expecting to come out in 2010 and make 50 out the gate. That was posted.
All right, so your college institution lied to you. Fair enough.
Exactly. So for how am I supposed to feel not knowing that they lied to me while I'm in the shit?
But there was an amount of information that you could have known, there was a guarantee like that. Number one, even for that.
You can't blame somebody for not knowing what they don't know.
I'm not blamed. Well, no, that's not true. That's not true at all. Because the reality is,
you don't know
the information is out there. The information is out there for you to study and for you to really research, if you look hard enough, on what true disciplines are going to be able to give you the bread. And I'm talking as a person that majored in public relations and knocked on motherfuckers' door, had an internship in NPR. You know what I'm saying? And couldn't do shit with it. And when motherfuckers was telling me I needed 10 years of experience on top of my bachelor's in order to even get that. But one thing I do about it is that I feel like at the end of the day, I knew for a fact that if I wanted to really guarantee my bread, then I would have goddamn been an engineer. An engineer. Yeah. Well, like if I would have been a computer engineer but that was very difficult to do. Right. And so I chose not to do that.
Here's the thing.
And that's my fault.
But here's the
thing, though. That's my fucking fault.
Though? You don't know that until you're in the shit.
I knew that.
You knew that at 18 years old going to college.
I knew I'll tell you what I did.
You can't.
I knew what the percentages were, which we all know the percentages of disciplines where you can guarantee yourself making money. What are you going to school for, right? So if the idea is if you're going to school for making bread, like in order to make yourself economically viable, then you can look through the courses and see, and then look up those courses online and see exactly what the actual job market looks like, and then what the field looks like. And when you choose to do a discipline that, number one, even in finance, and this is another thing about it, like you went to a certain degree of finance. You're talking about a bachelor's in finance, right? So even if you look up bachelor's in finance, and we can look it up right now, like the field for that is incredibly low. Like at the end, not that field is low, but the field itself doesn't guarantee you a job. And we could look that up right now, and we could have looked that up 4 years ago, and it would have made the same thing. We could look it up when we went to school, and it would have meant the same thing. And I'm not saying that as a knock to you, because obviously you're well versed in finance and things of that nature.
I'm not. I honestly, if it wasn't for
you
the
know
fact
more
that
than
I was
me,
a
you know more
music
than he brought this
If it wasn't
little
for the
question.
fact that I was a music minor, my GPA would have been shot. But all of that being said, like.
But it's your responsibility to figure out what it is that you can do in this life in order to make yourself financially viable, in order to be successful in anything. That's your fault. That ain't the government's fault. That ain't college's fault. The college didn't guarantee you this. The college didn't goddamn say, "Hey, Will, we need you." You know what I'm saying? The colleges, you applied to these colleges. You chose your major. That's on your own responsibility to figure out what it is that you can do in order to make yourself successful.
And that all
so
sounds
to blame it on other people doesn't make sense.
That all sounds great.
It's just the fact.
But again, you're taking what the facts are, but you're not counting in social norms. And you cannot and that's what a lot of politicians don't factor in, or that's what a lot of
that's really what a lot of conservatives do.
Okay,
right? I can admit I'm very conservative in that aspect of responsibility.
I can agree with that. It is my responsibility, but I will be the first to tell you. I will be the first to tell you.
Sherm, what up? Mike,
I did not even know that people did not go to college. I didn't know that was not an option until I was in the 12th grade.
Whose fault is that?
I'm 16, 17 years old. How the hell am I supposed to know that?
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking you at all. But whose fault is that? Whose fault is that you did not look up that you weren't privy to the information that was available? Whose fault is that? That's why I put it on myself. It's my fault I majored in public relations. It's my fault I got my degree in something that was going to be incredibly difficult to find myself a job in a particular market that it is in. And that's my fault. If I wanted it to be easy, if I wanted to just motherfuckers to just come at me, then I should have number one, I should have got my shit together. I should have real life applied in computer engineering or whatever, or agriculture engineering or whatever, any engineering degree or mathematician, and I should have stayed in school till I got my master's and PhD, and then I wouldn't have to worry about motherfucking. Then people really would be knocking on my door. But I had the assumption. Right, and based on what society told me. Right. That as soon as I get my bachelor's, that's what's going to carry me. But that was my own fault for not putting in the work and the effort into understanding what it was really going to take for me to goddamn be financially viable in 2018. If that was my goal. Like, look, if you go to school, right? If you go to school and all you're trying to do is educate yourself and think on an abstract level, then it really doesn't matter what discipline you get in, and you got what you wanted out of it. But if you went to school to make bread and you chose a discipline that didn't automatically throw you bread, to me, that's you. Like, you can't put all. It's to me, and it comes with everything. You can't put all the responsibility on everybody else, on the system, on everything else. When you had the ability to choose a major that was available, you had the ability to search and understand what it was going to be for you to be financially viable in today's economy. And that's nobody's fault but your own.
And nobody's saying, I'm not saying that, yes, I didn't, that is absolutely my responsibility. But you can't say, and again, it to me, it all goes to that same word you keep using, balance. That's on, and I would gladly accept that as just the flat facts. If everything wasn't swayed in the other direction. If they didn't say, oh, no matter what degree you get, you're going to come out with a bachelor and get a job. Like,
See, but I mean, and that's true, and don't get me wrong.
Now, mind you, a lot of these things, it's a great concept to think if everything is on an even keel. But I mean, at 20, 19, 18, 19, 20, 21, you're just thinking what you've always been told. As soon as I get this piece of paper, I'm good. The same thing that my parents were told when they were graduating high school.
And you know the fucked up part about that is that people who are in trades now are making incredibly more. I'm driving the bus making more than what I could have done. Than getting what I got my degree in with public relations. I'm making more driving the bus than what I'm doing. You're in real estate. You didn't have to go to finance for real estate. Had you just jumped into real estate, you wouldn't even have had to like deal with all of that. You know what I'm saying? And and to me, that's fucked up that our society isn't pushing towards, isn't giving people the keys in order to be, or at least our government.
Right. So, okay. So, on that note.
But whose fault is that? It's not their responsibility to do so.
It is because they run the public school system. Do they not? So, is it wrong for us to say, okay, I want my education system, moving forward, I want my education system to teach whatever children I have moving forward, that's not the way to go. It's my responsibility to teach them that as well. But they run the education system. It'd be nice if I could say I'd like my children to have that choice to go to trade school or to go to college and not be saddled with a shit ton of debt because of it.
There's always, and this is another thing and this is one part I agree with you at. Like one thing Mike Davis was talking about where he said there's always been trade schools that young black men could have attended to. Wait, hold on. He said there have always been trade schools that young black men could attend in high school and out of high school. There's been a decline in skilled black laborers that enabled themselves to be self-sufficient. When the curriculums were taken out of schools, it took away the opportunities for and I totally agree with that.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with that because at the end of the day, a lot of these trades are what's in demand, where we were taught that college degrees were in demand.
Exactly.
But you could throw it on the education system to say that, but at the end of the day, when these shits were established, when a college degree was, let's say, when a small amount of people had college degrees, then that's when college degrees were set out for. You know what I'm saying? But when everybody had a college degree, now it's the trades that are really like exactly. Developing themselves.
Now that being said, while you're in the shit, yes, you can do your own research, but the level of not necessarily research needed, but it's almost like you got the web and the dark web, because I mean now, absolutely, in 2018, the information is out there. Even when we were in school, the 2000, let's say 2005, 2006, the internet on an educational level was, and the development of what we know now in terms of how the market works and what's needed in 2005, 2006, the majority of news media was still reporting that a college degree is worth thus, and thus. Am I right?
That, I mean, they look at broad statistics that say that if you have
how
agreed.
Do you,
I mean, but this is the thing, and it all, to me, it all partners back, and this is the part where our idea, our concept for this particular podcast was conservatism in the black community. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things that conservatism does, I'm not saying Republican, I'm talking about the idea of conservatism. The whole idea of conservatism is about self-responsibility, the responsibility for you to figure out your way in life, and as long the government shouldn't impose things that get in the way of your right to find out this information and do what it is that you want to do. You know what I'm saying?
That sounds more liberal to me.
No, that's not liberal at all. Like, I mean, you could say it's libertarian.
Well,
in the idea, like, you know, small government.
Depending on the topic, because a lot of what I find in conservatism, which, like you said, is separate from the Republican Party. But the Republican Party has a huge hand in the conservatism has a huge hand in the Republican Party. They have a lot of dictations on who should be able to do what and when and how. You can't say that they don't.
Yeah, I mean that's real. That's real. And so Mike Davis said, "Shout out Darius." He was talking about yes, self responsibility. You know, I'm all about that. And then it says you can't pull yourself about your bootstraps if you don't have any boots.
Exactly.
And look, it is the job. I do think that it is this job and a responsibility of our government, because the government essentially is supposed to be is an entity that's supposed to facilitate the people's needs.
Yes.
So it is. I do think it is the responsibility for for these entities to facilitate a atmosphere where everybody has the opportunity of building themselves up. But one thing that we fucking forget about is that, don't give me, equal opportunity is what the fuck we need to talk about, right? But not equal outcome. Not equal outcome, because there's a different amount of effort that other people put into it. So I don't like at the end of the day, like Elon Musk and some of these high tech guys that put in crazy amounts of hours a day in the work that they do. Number one, they should be rewarded for that.
Absolutely.
They should be rewarded for that. And I don't want to work that hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to work that hard. Therefore, and I don't think I deserve the money that comes with working that hard.
Okay, and I absolutely
So we're
agree
talking about equality of opportunity rather than equality of outcome. And that's one of the things that progressives tend to look at. Like, they look at the outcome of things, such as, let's say, no, that's a fact. Because what people leaning hard to the left look at the fact that there's the outcome is that women make 75 cents to the dollar of men. You know what I'm saying? But they're not looking at what it is that women, the jobs that women typically take. You know what I'm saying? They're not looking at the actual factors that contribute into that.
Okay,
so it's
well,
like
let's talk about those factors. Let's talk about those factors then. And here's where progressivism fits that mold. Because if you're saying women make 75% to every dollar for everything men make, do I agree to a certain extent? If a man works construction and a woman works construction, if a man can carry 10 bags in an hour and a woman can carry 7.5, then the man deserves $1 versus 7.5 for the woman. I can agree with that to a certain extent. Now, here's where I have the issue. Is the woman given the opportunity to get that job with the man? You see what I'm saying? And that's where progressivism separates itself from conservatism, or democratic
but
separates itself.
Even
from,
when you look at them, like, we're looking at especially like people talk about like women not getting into STEM, or there's not a proportionate level of women in STEM and men. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, we gotta look at the people that are actually interested in doing STEM. And so you can look at the Nordic countries, right? You can look at Sweden, where they've tried to factor in all they tried to make things as equal as possible. And so what happens is that people tend to go with their temperament a lot more than we think. Like, when you give people the equal opportunity of getting whatever jobs they do, they tend to go their temperament. So women absolutely dominate the healthcare fields, right? And so at the end of the day, when we're looking at and that's one of my problems I have with certain progressive people, is that when we look at some of the things, it's like the healthcare field is dominated by women. Should we change that? Do we need to get more men in that? Do we need to goddamn make sure that it's equal across the board when it comes to healthcare and things of that nature? No.
Okay.
No, we shouldn't, again, right?
That's not what the question was. The question was not whether we should get more men in. It's if a man wanted the opportunity to get into healthcare, should he have the same opportunity?
But who's saying that you aren't having those opportunities?
And that's the whole point of progressivism or democratic versus conservatism and Republican. Because if you're saying all things being equal, very few things in America are equal.
Should they be equal?
Yes. The opportunity should be equal.
The opportunities, but even if you have the opportunity,
they're not.
I'm not even discrediting that, but I'm saying if you're saying that the opportunities should be equal, number one, the opportunities.
Hey, what's the score for the Vikings Saints game, Mike?
Oh yeah. Check out that, man. We gotta check out what the score is on that. He's a Vikings fan for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, if we're talking about okay, the opportunities, but the opportunities aren't gonna match the outcomes.
And that's fine. That's fine.
I'm
absolutely fine with that.
But if the outcome for the opportunities are having, you said what? Oh, 7-0 so who way? Of course, man. The Saints out here doing their thing. But if the
you already know who I'm talking to right now.
But
you already know who I'm talking to.
But if the
right
opportunities themselves, just because the opportunities are there, the outcomes are not going to be equal. The outcomes are not going to be
and
equal.
That's fine. That's fine.
But then how are you judging? How are you judging whether the opportunities are because if the outcomes are going to be different, then how are you judging whether the opportunities aren't available?
If you're looking at the outcome, if you take that same example, a man getting paid $1 for a woman making 75 cents, why is this woman not making $1 for the exact same work?
Well, obviously because women don't work as much hours. No. This is no. Let's get with the facts. Women don't work as much hours as men. That's a fact. You know what I'm saying? Because you could talk about socially or whatever. Number one, women tend to have babies. Women tend to want to stay at home. There's a lot of that, I'm not saying not stay at home as far as just be stay at home moms, but they tend to want to. They're more what you call it they're more nurturers. So they want that family itself is valued higher, typically, generally, than the actual work. And for men,
that's a wild personality assumption.
That's not a wild personality assumption. That is backed by statistical and psychological data that has been developed over the course of 100 years. Are you sitting up here really trying to argue the fact that women themselves aren't?
I'm not saying they're not nurturers.
They don't gravitate. They don't value family and social interaction more than. But then by that same metric,
saying they value those things. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to pay scale, something that should be equal. But
pay scale is different than when you're talking about the actual amount of money that's paid, right? Because if a guy is working 80 hours a week and the woman is working 40 hours a week, when we go and do the statistics and the polls, we're going to look at their overall net money that they made for that year. And a lot of times the problems we have is that we sit up here and we look at these scales and we'll be like, oh, well, if we look at how much money women made versus how much money men made, then men make more. But we're not factoring
that's not the statistic that's being run when they say the 75% to the
that
is dollar.
Exactly the statistic.
What they're saying is, I'm a man, you're a woman, you get hired for the same job that I do, you may and I say, I'm the boss. I say, okay, I'll pay you $36,000 a year. When I'm talking to the guy, I'll pay you $40,000 a year for the exact same job. That's what's happening.
But there's another thing about it, because we're also talking about temperament. When women tend to be more agreeable, right? Like when we're on a temperament scale. So when people tend to be more agreeable and men tend to be more disagreeable, that doesn't mean being agreeable is better or being disagreeable is better. It just manifests itself in different ways. So if you're a person that is disagreeable, you're going to argue and fight for your particular, you're going to negotiate the amount of money that you're trying to get. And if you're more agreeable, you're more going to go with the flow of how these things go, whatever money that they're about to pay you. And I don't know how we particularly got on this subject, but I really am glad that we hit it, because I think that I'm not saying that we shouldn't make policies that make things absolutely equal, but we can't just say that there's an absolute patriarchy that all of a sudden all men benefit, because
that's just one topic.
And that's true. But I just want to put this fact out there. All right. So the top 1% of men, right? The top 1% of people earners in the world, right? They are men. Let's throw that out there. That's a statistical fact. Okay. You would agree? I agree. Right. You know what I'm saying? I didn't mean to fake that. But at the end, that's a fact. All right. So then this is also a fact. You know who who carries the heaviest percentage of people who are homeless and makes the lowest amount of money in the world? Men. Right? So we account for the small minority at the top, and we also account for the large majority of people who are homeless, people who don't make bread, and people who goddamn are struggling. Mm-hmm. There aren't a lot of financial systems for men who don't have kids, and are, whether they have kids or not really is almost irrelevant. There's not a lot of structure that's based on trying to help out these men that are fucked up in the game. And so when we say it's a patriarchy that men themselves own the world, and we're sitting up here that to me that's just not intellectually consistent, because the reality is that it's more in the middle. Because men tend to be on the top of the scale, absolutely, but then men also dominate the bottom of the scale as well. Black men in general. This is another thing about the like when we sit up here and we try to bash men, when we sit up here and try to talk shit about like how men have it way better than women. The reality is, especially us black men, black women are educated at what 5 times the rate that black men are.
Oh,
I mean that black women are. Women make more money than black men are right now. So if we're gonna talk about this oppression Olympics, which I don't believe in, but if we're gonna talk about oppression, who is real life getting oppressed more? Who is getting oppressed more by that statistic? When we're talking about men that real life is out here, that we don't have these shit to fall back on. When you ain't got no place to stay and you a dude and you ain't got no kids with you, where you going? You going on the fucking street. That's a fact.
True shit.
Where if you're a woman with kids, where are you going? You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, you might go on the street, or you have social programs that are set up to give you like not necessarily a crutch, but give you help in order to find housing and things of that nature. So I have a problem when people talk about like patriarchy and somehow men have it better than women. The reality is that life itself is suffering, and we all play a part in it, and we all suffer from it. So like trying to compare each other's struggle is bullshit. Trying to compare each other's struggle is to me very manipulative. Like that's why I have a problem sometimes when you always advocate, not always, but when you consistently advocate on the point of that men ain't shit or that women.
I say only in the dating and courting. You cannot sway that argument, because I always say when it comes to dating and courting a woman,
shout out Darius, boy.
Black men have missed the mark tremendously when it comes to dating and courting, particularly black women. But that's a topic for a whole nother day.
Yeah, we won't get into it, because then we're talking about who has the responsibility, especially when it comes to dating and courting, who has the responsibility of bringing people into your life. At the end of the day, when you have a multiple amount of suitors and you have the option of choosing who you want to have sex with, who you want to have a baby with, if we put all the responsibility on men, what we're doing is we're not being even, because you have a responsibility for the people that you let in your life, the people that you let bust a nut in you. You know what I'm saying? I know I just said that very graphically.
Let's keep it 100.
But you have a responsibility for the people you let bust a nut in you.
I absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the whole thing about it. You have the responsibility for the people that you bring in your life to be as positive as possible. And when you decide to bring somebody in your life and they do you dirty, you can look at it. You can look at it as if they were fucked up, and they probably were. You know what I'm saying? But if the fault always lies on the other person, and that's where we're going to get back to the fundamentals. The fundamentals of this entire argument is that we all should take personal responsibility for the choices that we make. No matter if you are going to school and you're choosing a major, whether you getting in relationships, whether it is like we need to focus on personal responsibility.
And I don't disagree with that.
And so when all we do is focus on what the government ain't did for us, what our women ain't did for us, what our men ain't did for us. You know what I'm saying? Only thing we're doing is passing the buck.
I'm not saying
we're passing the buck.
I'm not saying that's the only argument. But what you're basically saying is personal responsibility is the only thing that you can factor in. And I think that's the majority. And that would be great if all things were equal. That would be great if all things were equal. I would absolutely agree with that if all things were equal. But that's not been the case. That has never been the case.
And it never will be the case. We can look at the entire state of history. There has never been a society. This is part that baffles my fucking mind. People think if anybody who is well versed in history knows that whether we developed feudalism, whether it was a monarchy, whether we've developed a democratic republic, we have not been able to create a world where everything is going to be equal, where everybody has the same opportunity. And I don't even think we want a world like that. I don't even want a world where everything is absolutely going to be equal no matter the outcome. Because if that doesn't make sense.
If that's the case,
that's a utopian
then why try
idea
for anything. then why try for anything?
The reason why you strive and do things is because you want to strive above the masses. You want to, and that's what really people work for anything for, is you want to be better than not only, let's say, the average person, but you want to be better than the person you was yesterday. And that's why I really absolutely agree that we all need to focus on how we can best make our situation better. That's how we need to focus, bro. And if all we do is focus on what the government ain't doing for us, what just your family ain't doing for us.
Said that's the only.
I'm not saying that's the only argument, but I'm saying is that what is our focus and what is our perspective? Real life, the perspective I think that people should have at the end of the day is that, look, if you're born in America, number one, you're in the top 1% of the world.
Okay.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
All right? You go ahead, look at Somalia. You rather be born in Somalia?
Fuck no.
You rather be born in Venezuela? You know what I'm
no.
saying? At the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? We have opportunities just point blank being here. And that doesn't guarantee that our life is going to be great. That doesn't guarantee that our life is even going to be filled with tragedy. There's nothing about life
But
that we can stop tragedy and suffering.
You can easily compare that. I mean, it's so easy to say, oh yeah, I would rather be born in America than in some shit third world country. That makes me blessed. But if you're comparing things just in America, you can't say, yes, you're in the top 1%, but how many of us ever even interact with somebody from Haiti, from Somalia?
What difference does that make, though? What difference does that? It's about perspective, and to me that's what it's about. It's about perspective, and the perspective that you need to have is that the perspective that's going to be productive and going to help you facilitate a life where you can be successful is the perspective that there are opportunities out here and that you can go get them.
Oh,
and that the mistakes that you make are the ones that contribute the most to your own failure. Absolutely. That is where we need to focus on.
I can absolutely agree with that.
And that's a conservative idea.
I can absolutely agree with that. But you cannot say, as a black man in America, that is the only way to think.
It's not. No, that's not the only way to think.
Not the only way to think.
But to me, that's the most productive way of thinking, because if you focus on, and I deal with this with some of my friends as well. Like what happens is when you tend to focus on all the things that can get in your way, just being a human, it overwhelms you, and you realize, like, you start developing a perspective that's very nihilistic, where if you look at all the negative things that could happen, all the things that are technically getting in your way, then what you do is you focus on those things.
Trust me, I believe you. Remember when I sat here and critiqued that one show you had with that one guy you had? You remember mind you, this has been my man since we was like 5 years old. So we like this is my oldest friend in the world.
And I know you're not extreme. I know you're not extreme with it.
What I'm saying is
that is an inside joke that nobody's gonna goddamn understand. And nobody's gonna get that shit. That's an inside joke, bro.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is, you can easily have that mentality that, yes, okay, it is my absolute responsibility to do the best I can with what I have. Right. But it is also my responsibility to make sure that what I have is equal, especially when we're in a country whose foundation was built upon life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, everyone being equal, Bill of Rights, all this other bullshit that never affected us in a positive way. You cannot blame us for voting for either middle ground or moving somebody or anything forward.
Democratic.
Right, you can't blame somebody for voting Democratic.
I don't blame them.
If they're progressing in any way towards what that should mean for you, for me, for anybody, I will be the first to admit, and I got some followers who I absolutely like. I will admit, this week I signed a petition. Trump is trying to pass a law to define what trans. This is just an example. We
about to get into it.
Yeah, Trump tried to pass, and this is just what
Let's
my
go.
perception of it.
I'm with you.
I am Trump tried to pass a law trying to define what transsexualism is. I signed a petition to deny that. Now, I will be the first to admit I am a Christian man. I believe that there's a man and a woman. I believe that biologically there is a man and a woman. But what I do believe as well is that it is not my right to tell someone else what they feel, who they feel they are, what they want to do with their body. Okay? Now, so I signed that petition. I'll be the first to admit that, because I have friends who are transsexual, who have gone from male to female or female to male, or are in that process. And it's not my business to tell them what they do with their body or how they feel. So
but this is the part that we're gonna get into. Like, it's not your business, but it is the government's job in order to classify what items, or how you can how we're going to classify human beings or citizens in this particular world. And I mean, in this America. And
right,
so
well, let's double back on that.
Let me show a little bit. All right, so basically all right, so this is one of the biggest things. This is coming from CNN. It's talking about the American medical community currently recognizes a distinction between sex, a classification based on bodily characteristics, internal and external, and gender, the social constructed norms and behaviors typically ascribed to men and women. Now, this is the idea of it. There's a problem there. To me, I'm not fully educated on the bill, but I do.
Me neither.
Yeah, I know, right. I mean, this most of us. But the idea is that I do think that we should definitely, just because I'm not saying that transgenderism is wrong, or that people shouldn't be able to live the lives in which they live. But you understand that with, like I said before, with every particular policy that comes across, there are going to be consequences, and especially if the arguments themselves are not consistent intellectually or what do you call it, or scientifically, there is going to be an issue, right? So for example, like what you're talking about with that particular policy is that people should be able to. There should be an added classification, either an added classification on what somebody defines themselves as, whether they're a man or a woman, or there should be or people should be able to ascribe to whatever gender that they think is fits their particular profile.
Now, I will say, when it comes to the whole, and again, it's
Shout
out
out
of my
Darius.
wheelhouse. Bathroom thing. Okay,
I don't necessarily have an issue with the bathroom thing. Like, as far as I think that, like, at the end of the day, it really doesn't make no difference. Like, if I go in a female, like, I didn't win the female's bathroom. You know what I'm saying? When the motherfucking, like, son, then you gotta take a piss. You gotta take a piss.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
So
it is what it is.
That is what.
And
it is.
we go into the bathrooms with our daughters
so if that's
and
the
sons.
case, if that's the case, and the reason why I wanted to double back on that, if we can create policy telling someone how to live their life, because
that's not telling somebody how. No, it's not. It's telling somebody what the class. If you were born with majority male DNA, whereas you have a penis, at the end of the day, you should be classified as a male for classification purposes.
Okay, so what are these classification purposes?
But at the end, because this is how this whole postmodernism idea, number one, tries to disregard science. And this is one of the biggest problems I have with it. At the end of the day, if you were born a male and you were born with a penis, like, you can go ahead and chop it off, or you could go ahead and classify yourself and walk around and say that you're a woman and change your name. You're fully within your rights to do that. And I don't necessarily even have a problem with it. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why the fuck I'm gonna give a fuck about how the fuck you do your thing, right? But if we're talking about making legislation that says that anybody could classify themselves as whatever they feel like, you're going to see a infinite amount of classifications that go with that particular thing. So, all right. So, for example, when you say that people can be man and woman, right? Like depending on how they feel, right? That brings in a problem because at the end of the day, it's like,
how so?
I'll tell you where it has a problem at. At the end of the day, it blurs the lines of classification in itself.
What are we classifying?
We're talking about whether people are men or women.
But what are we classifying? What in day-to-day life are we classifying?
We're talking about whether you are a man or woman.
Okay,
this is
now
what
where is that important? That's what I'm saying. Where does that matter?
It's important.
In day-to-day life?
I'm going to explain it to you. Number one, when you're collecting statistical data, if you want to know differences between men and women, how they think, how they act, you need to be able to judge whether they are a man or a fucking woman. How else are you going to create statistical data? You can't do it. If everybody can choose whenever they're man or whatever, if in the morning, and that's what the gender blender shit says, is that if you're a man, if I'm a gender blender, then in the morning I'm a fucking, a woman, and later on I'm a male. You're declassifying what the whole idea of what man and a woman is, and you're confusing children from fully understanding who they are biologically, and that's a problem. That for me is a fucking problem because number one, at the end of the day, children are very malleable. Children are very malleable. Children, they can be very affected about what it is that you taught them or teach them. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the fucking day, like, the world is confusing enough. The world is hard to deal with, and it's filled with suffering, and trying to figure out who you want to be, even if you know yourself to be a man or a woman or whatever the fuck you are, it's hard enough. To confuse children to the point where they don't even understand how it is, because we're grown as fuck. And we barely understand how the fuck it is that, obviously now, because of the movement, we barely understand how it is that people are man and woman or things of that nature. As we confuse these children, you know what I'm saying? We're dipping into the realm of chaos where we cannot fully be able to establish ourselves in this life. You know what I'm saying? And things are way more confusing than they need to be. If you grew up as a male, and you want to dress as a girl and get all this surgery and do all of that and live your life, do that. Ain't nobody got a problem with it. I don't got a problem with it. Like, look, why am I give a fuck what another motherfucker do? I don't care what you do. But if we're going to start stating policy and enforcing an ideology on our children that they can be man or female based on their own particular perspective that has no basis in actual science or biology.
So here's where
you're fucking them.
Here's where you completely misdiagnosed your own argument. You literally just defined in that transsexualism. You said, if I'm a man and I want to do such and such as a woman, I can do that. So the gender definition or the gender typecast is still there. It's just me deciding to, instead of what I am, go with this over here. So it's still defined. If I say I want to wear a dress today, and I never do that. I'm a heterosexual male.
You sure?
Don't even play.
I ain't gonna play. I want to go ahead still, man.
Right, you about to get jabbed like a motherfucker.
Now you got me fucked up. You got me fucked up. Fuck out it now. I'm fucking with you.
But if I say, okay, I want to wear a dress today, by societal norm, a dress.
That would technically just make you a cross-dresser, right? I got you. I'm gonna let you finish. I'm sorry.
By definition, by what you said, and by societal norm, a dress is a female trait or something that a female does. So if I'm a man and I have a daughter or I have a son and I say, Daddy wears a dress. This is what women do. This is who Daddy is. But you're welcome to do whatever you want as who you are.
Okay.
This is who I identify with.
All right.
you're still defining what a man and a woman is to a certain extent. You're still going in that gender with that societal gender role.
This is my thing. Number one, this is where we're going into and this is actually a new idea. Mm-hmm. Let's not sit up here and act like this was an idea.
Oh yeah.
This is a new idea. That gender has to do with behavior and that is separate from sex, right? Because this is the whole idea that I'm still confused on, and I've looked up and I've realized I have listened to endless political debates by scientists, by people in the community, by transgenders and all of that, which they aren't even 100% defined on it. You'll find plenty of transgenders that say that, look, I believe I'm the sex of a male, but at the same time, like, I like to present myself as a woman because that's how I feel inside. But I truly don't believe, you know what I'm saying, that I am a woman, like a woman biologically. You know what I'm saying? So there's even some debate within the transgender community. But for me, the part that's really important is that we don't confuse ourselves with what is true biologically that we've been able to develop. And at the end of the day, the reality is that there are two sexes. There is a male biologically. Now there is a small subset of people who are born with a lot of Y chromosomes. A lot of X chromosomes.
Hermaphrodites.
Yeah, right, exactly. Who are born with both genitalia. In which case, that's a particular case that actually has some merit. You know what I'm saying? But if we're gonna say that anybody could appear, men or women, what you're doing is you're creating an overarching narrative that doesn't make number one intellectual sense, and it creates a lot of confusion within the shit. So for example, right, like I had my little shit with the Metro shit, right? And so I played with him a little bit, right? Because you know I'm a fucking dickhead, right? You know what I'm saying? Obviously everybody knows I'm a fucking right, and everybody knows I'm a dickhead. So they had the dude that was gonna come in and give me my piss test. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, all right, so wait, time out. This is a male that's coming through? Time out. Like, what if I identify myself as a woman? Shouldn't I have a woman come in here and look at my dick while I piss? Right? Because if I identify this is the whole idea. Like if we start seeing the confusion and we look at sports, right? So then we look at MMA, right? Then if somebody identifies as a woman, should I be able to chop my penis off, have a bunch of surgeries, and then fight women? Should that be fair? Should because if we're gonna figure that shit out, should there not be a classification between the WNBA and should there not be any more female sports? Because there should be just sports. But what would happen if that happened, right? What would happen? Then basically females wouldn't have sports, right? Females wouldn't have sports because none of them would be able to get into it. Serena Williams is a fucking Hall of Fame legend, one of the greatest sports athletes that we even know. But the reality is, if she went into the men's division, she would
dominate. She would dominate.
Number one, she actually played a match with a man who was ranked something like 140 something and got her ass whooped 6-0.
Oh shit! You know
that's
more
a fact.
than I do.
I mean, we could just look at statistics. Like if women, you could look at the 100-meter dash. Some of the world records that are created by women is somewhere in the tens, like some of the early tens, the late nines, and you have motherfuckers like Usain Bolt that's out here pushing like 9.2. So, and this is where it gets confusing, right? So this is what happens when you create this narrative trying to make everybody all inclusive. Exactly. We know she wouldn't dominate because the reality is when you make it all inclusive, we're actually doing a disservice to women. They deserve their own lane for being athletic. They deserve their own lane. They deserve their own they need to be respected as women and be able to do their own thing as women. And when we complicate this and say anybody could be a male or a woman, you know what I'm saying? You have the body lifter that motherfucking shattered, he chopped off his motherfucking dick, said he's a transgender woman, and then killed the motherfucking bodylifting, the bodylifter got it down like shit, murdered them all, right? You got the race. So what should these women do? Isn't that a disservice to women? Isn't it? There would be no WNBA if we decided that men could be women and women could be men. Why? Because women don't have the same athletic ability that men do, right? And it'll hurt for men too, because at the end of the day, we don't have the same ability to, number one, to be, women are a lot more socially intelligent. They're a lot more nurturing. They have the way better ability to deal with kids at their younger age. So we're gonna do a disservice to men as well if we adopt this overarching narrative that's confusing at worst and destructive at most. And that's my problem with it. Live your life how the fuck you want to live it, bruh. That's my whole thing. Live your life. If you want to do whatever you want to do, I don't have no problem with it. I don't give a fuck. Number one, sexuality is on a spectrum anyway. So like, just because you dress up like a girl, niggas gonna fuck you, obviously. Good look at tag. You know what I'm saying? So that's my whole point. At the end of the day, like, you can live your life however you want to live. You know what I'm saying? Like, but just because you live in your life however you want to live doesn't mean that needs to be a social policy or that people should motherfucking adhere to whatever you're talking about. At the end of the day, I always like to say it with this. Look, at the end of the day, I could think myself as LeBron James all I want, but that don't mean you got to look up to me I'm 5 foot fucking nothing. You know what I'm saying? So that don't mean you got to look up to me every time you fucking see me. That don't mean you got to treat me as if I'm a tall person just because I believe that I should be tall. Like that, those issues and those inconsistencies within that particular argument are going to be destructive more than they're going to be advantageous to our society. And we're talking about changing an entire system for a population that is less than what? It's like what? Like something like 0.6% of the people that are in the United States are identify themselves as transgender. So we're going to change our entire fucking narrative, our entire social policy based on ideas that aren't even the consensus among them. That aren't even the consensus among transgenders. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. I'm not Braun, bro.
I can't.
Exactly.
I can't disagree with that logic. I cannot disagree with that logic. And I'm not saying I am. What I'm saying is, again, when it comes to the interperson, the personal, let them be who they are. But I absolutely agree when it comes to.
If you want me to call you she, I will refer to you as, even in interpersonal relationships, yeah, I don't have to call you in a third person if I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I would just call you by your name.
But I mean, if me, you, and somebody else is in a room, I mean, and I'll be the first to admit, you know, and I know a few of these people. I'm a Cat, Amina. Y'all already know. I'm talking to y'all.
He about to get shit. He about to get shitted on by his friends.
Yeah, I
look
mean,
at him. Check him out.
I do not understand the whole they them thing. But
the pronouns.
But I'm willing to understand. That's my thing.
Z and Zer.
I'm willing to understand, and I think that's where the disconnect comes, because what a lot of people I've found who are extremely conservative, they
Wilhelmina. Look at retarded.
Come on, LB. Don't even play with me, son. Don't even play with me, son. You were just on the phone. How am I supposed to bring you on this motherfucker and your ass coming at me? Don't play, LB. Don't even play.
I just keep it in a buck, man.
No.
Real,
you already know. I'll fuck your bitch.
Check him out.
Anyway. When it comes, I don't understand that. I'll be the first to explain that I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me to be multiple people in one person. That doesn't make sense to me. So if you want to refer to as he or she based on that, that makes sense to me. But they, them,
I can't even say the he or she, because at the end of the day, it's like, is there we have classifications for a reason. And to me, especially when it comes to sex, number one, you could argue race, because race is one of those things that definitely was socially constructed. That's no argument. Race is something that we socially constructed together as humans.
Oh, absolutely.
Where like even scientists and biologists don't
say that a white person and a black person are
right. Like we all came from black people, right. Yeah. And then so it's like to say somebody like that, the race thing. But if we're talking about gender, there are a few things in this life that we've got solidified. It's few. It's a little bit of shit that we've got solidified, and we understand who men are and we understand what women are. So let's not confuse our children. Let's not. I'm not advocating any type of fucking harm to come to anybody who wants to do anything, but I'm just saying, as social policy, we should not create a extra vacuum in which people can define themselves as men or women, son. It's just like it's not intellectually consistent. It doesn't go with the biological science that we've developed. And if we progress in science and it figures out that is proven by science, which obviously it's not leading to, but if that comes a day that they can prove that, then I would change my position.
Yeah, for me,
absolutely.
Like I said, I again, when it comes to the interpersonalism, I'm with it. Do what you want to do. But when it comes to policy, I think that's
you signed
where I
the bill.
agree.
But you just said you signed a bill that
because I don't want them to feel like they're infringed upon by, and this is another conservative standpoint. They don't want infringement by the government. That is absolutely.
But who's infringing? The question is, how is the trans community getting infringed on by their rights?
They're telling them that they can't define themselves as who they are.
You can define yourself. You can change your name. You can do whatever you want to do. You can live your life how you want to do it. Just the fact that you're talking about like what rights are you really? Can you not get a job? If people are discriminating against you because you're a male but you identify as a female, if people are discriminating against you for that, that's a problem. Okay. But if you're saying that that they're getting that the society at large is discriminating against them off the strength that they identify as another person, like, look, you're well within your bounds to do whatever you want. Like I said, I'm LeBron James, bro. I identify as LeBron James. So you don't have to respect it. You know what I'm saying? But I can do what I want. And they can do what they want. But that doesn't mean that society at large should conform to your way of thinking. Especially when it's not backed by statistical data or biology.
All right, so let's bring this back to the original topic then.
Okay.
How does that then affect
facts, Darius?
I mean, I'm reading what he's saying, and again, like we were even saying before this podcast, you know what I'm saying? If you can bring up a logical explanation for your argument,
right?
The type of person that me and him are, we're gonna say, okay, I can agree with that. And that makes sense.
I'll change my exactly.
We were saying that literally before this.
This
podcast.
is and I appreciate everybody for tuning in. The reality is that this is how conversations need to be dealt with.
Absolutely.
Conversations like, just because I don't like he has a different opinion on me on topics that we can go down the list. We disagree with a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we're not emotionally involved. You know what I'm saying? I know for a fact this guy is a good guy and he means well and he knows the same thing from me.
Absolutely.
So that way, and you should be able to change your opinion based on logic and new data. You know what I'm saying? And this is why I always have him on the show. This one is definitely getting posted. The other one, I'm a show that was my fault because I was drunk. Another one, so that's why I ain't posted.
Such a good fucking show.
It was the men ain't shit argument, but I was drunk. I'm gonna keep it a buck. You know what I'm saying? So
well, shit, you didn't already admitted it now. You might as well post it.
Son, you got me fucked up, bro. You got me fucked up.
That was the best argument I have had.
Got me fucked up.
That was one of the best debates we have ever had.
It was the best debates because I was drunk and I couldn't articulate my position.
No. You definitely.
Plus, we got interrupted periodically because I had a female over here that was not.
We got interrupted because you got caught up on some bullshit.
I ain't get caught up on shit.
Let's keep it 100, bro.
Nigga,
let's keep it 100.
No, that's
you had a girl over here, and another girl called and was like, "Yo, why is she over there?" Like, let's keep it 100. But that's I
mean, it is what it is.
That's never gonna get released. I've accepted that.
I might release it I might release that shit one day, man.
Yeah, but that was a real conversation.
Absolutely,
but we've
man.
always had real conversation, and this is why this is my man. Like he said, we are not emotionally attached to this. one benefit of this is that, you know, and one thing I think that we and this will be a dope idea between me and you. We've never attacked an idea that affected both of us. I think that's why we can talk about transgenderism. I think that's why we can talk about politics. Because, yes, while we're black men in America and we can say, yo, this is why I believe this and this is why I believe that, we both know we going to vote how we vote. That's one of those things in society in general. But we've never found or addressed a topic that affected both of us to the point where we could get into a, well, fuck you then. Nah, fuck you then. But
I don't even know if a topic like that even exists.
I don't either.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, like we have, like there are certain topics that affect us. Like as far as the we ain't really get into it too much, but as far as the Me Too movement, you know what I'm saying? Like there are other we talk about college and things of that nature, and what our actual ideas on what college should be for and what are the downfalls of it. So we touched a couple of them. You know what I'm saying? In another particular podcast, I want to get somebody who is very educated on the Me Too movement, but at the same time not ideologically possessed and not emotionally invested into it, so to the point where we can't sit up around and talk.
The thing is, and this is what I found, like, and it's so, I've mentioned this in many a Facebook group, many like I see things. I don't think I've ever met a black woman or a woman in general who has not been sexually accosted in some way. And that says a lot. To say that I've never met a woman who has not been grabbed or, well, fuck you then, because you ain't trying to give me no ass. Or,
hey, look, this is a topic that we really, because this is a long.
Or raped.
Now, this is another thing that I had with my sister. And obviously we're not going to be able to get into it because that'll be a whole nother 2 hours. Yeah. But for me, absolutely, we need to talk about sexual conduct that has been prevalent and that we need to fix. I definitely agree with that. But a lot of times people jump into extremes, like saying that there's a rape culture. And the reality, and in my opinion, the reality is that it's not a rape culture. Because the reality is, when you look at the statistics, there were 67 million men in the United States between the ages of 18 to 35. And those are the guys that typically do rapes, 90-some% of the time.
Yeah,
So the reality is that the number of sexual assaults, and I'm including sexual assaults, I'm going to include the whole big kabang. There were 321,000 sexual assaults committed last year reported to the police. Now let's multiply that. I don't care. Let's multiply that by 3. That means that if you multiply that by 3, that means that to include the ones that are undocumented, that are unreported. That means that 99% of the men that were in the United States did not commit sexual assault. Let's just hold on to that. They say all right, 1 in 6 women have been fucked up with sexual assault in their lifetime. That and that's fucked up, and we need to address that.
Absolutely.
Right. But if you're gonna say that it's a rape culture, then you have to address the other part of the pie.
Well,
that means that 86% of men, or 80-something% of men, didn't sexually assault anybody.
But here's
so if we're not
culture,
but if you're gonna say rape culture, then we're talking about a culture that promotes and let's say, if you're gonna say rape culture, right? Just like the same way you say hip hop culture. If you're gonna say culture, a rape culture, then you have to talk about, that means that the culture itself has to promote.
No.
It has to.
You can't say that. You can't say that.
Wow.
Rape culture means that it's a culture where it's accepted.
It's not accepted. There are countless laws, from sexual assault to rape, that people get adjudicated for.
Great. But why do you think, if using the same numbers you used, 2/3 of those rapes do not go reported? It's because people are either too afraid, they're not believed, or when they do get charged, they get off.
All right, now let's just and let's
That's what
bring
they
that
mean
back.
by rape
See,
culture.
because then that would say that we got a murder culture too, right? Because more people get murdered in the United States than fucking motherfuckers who get raped. That's saying that there's a fucking alcohol epidemic, right? So, because it's saying that more people get killed by alcohol than marijuana. You could take any one of these points, and because of the amount of people that's gotten fucked up, you're gonna say that it's a culture in the United States. And I think that just that naming that word, it's disingenuous, and it doesn't represent what's going on. Most men don't fuck with rape.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Most men do not fuck with rape.
Well,
Man, I'm gonna tell you how I even fucked up. This is how you know that motherfuckers don't fuck with rape. Even murderers in jail kill motherfuckers who rape.
I'll agree with that.
They can't even be in the general population of what we think are the worst people in the society. These motherfuckers will real life kill their whole family, but motherfuckers will look at them like, shit, all right, or were you a rapist? Were you a pedophile? Oh, okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you getting fucked up in here.
Exactly. So to say that it's a rape culture, that us as men really want rape and we're complicit. That's what you're saying if you say it's rape culture, that's what you're saying. You're saying that men and society at large is complicit in the rape in the culture that influences rape for other people. And that's not saying rape ain't fucked up. I'm gonna tell you a real quick story before we get out of here. There was I listened to a video where there was a video that came on it was posted on Facebook and also posted on Instagram, where this girl was getting raped in the other room. And
I remember that.
That joint,
like a young.
oh my God. So that joint, you heard her screaming, saying no, like real.
Her friend was in the other room.
Her friend was in the other room saying that ain't got no problem with me. That right there, any man who heard that shit, especially us men who really consider ourselves men who have daughters, most of us men, if you listen to that, you would be like, I want that motherfucker dead.
Yeah.
I want that nigga dead. So a lot of times when you're saying it's a rape culture, the reason why I don't think it's productive is because you're not speaking to the motherfuckers that you're not speaking to the audience that you're talking about. You're arguing with us men that don't rape, and we're sitting up there saying like, look, we ain't all about that. We're with you. Like, we don't classify all of us and say we contribute to this rape culture when we don't fuck with rape. Any nigga that heard that shit was like, oh, we want I want to murk this nigga. Real shit. Like, I don't care. I don't even know him. I don't even know the girl, but I real life want to go smack this bitch ass nigga neck. You know what I'm saying? And so to say that it's a rape culture, you're including us, you're fighting us guys that are real life saying that, look, we're with you. You know what I'm saying? We're with you. We don't criminalize all of us and say that we all contribute to it, because we are the ones that we help it. That's the reality when you say rape culture, right? You're saying that it's a culture of rape,
and this goes back
and it's
to what
not. We
originally
prosecute
said.
people on rape.
This is what goes back to what we were initially saying.
If you knew somebody that raped somebody, or I knew somebody raped somebody that really raped somebody, would you fuck with them? Fuck no.
No, we don't. But here's the issue. When they say rape culture, they and trust me, I've jumped into this argument many times on that same aspect. On some, don't talk about me like that. I'm with you. And they be like, but we're not talking to you. We're talking.
Then you need to change the name.
Hmm?
Then you need to change the name, because the name that you're talking about is overarching, and it's an overarching narrative. There's a rape culture in America. That's bullshit. Just like when you say men ain't shit. That's an overall arching statement that implies that we are all complicit in what's going on, in the negativity that particular narrative presents. And we're not. Men aren't, like, we don't promote we don't promote rape. We don't promote the fact that that we should be fucked up, that we celebrate these motherfuckers that's doing that. You can see. Ain't no dude gonna tell you that, I ain't gonna say ain't no dude, but the majority of men, and especially stand-up black men in this community, we're not promoting the fact that you got raped and that shit is cool and you need to shut the fuck up. No, we're not. Yeah. So you're speaking to the wrong audience. The niggas that's gonna rape, they gonna rape regardless.
But here's the
they're
thing.
going to rape regardless, bro.
Here's the thing.
And you talking to the wrong crowd.
But here's the thing, though. When they say rape culture, what they're also talking about is not just the man who's actually physically raping. They're talking about the man who go to the club and grab an ass.
But that's not fucking rape. That's not rape. It's not a part of rape.
For accosting.
So then we're talking about then change the name. Then change the name. That's sexual assault. Agreed, right? But like this is the thing. This is because when you really know how fucked up rape really is, when you really get to like listen to it,
see what you're saying.
That's my whole thing. But if you listen, if you heard that video, you would realize get to listen, and I ain't even watching it.
But here's the thing.
But when we see this shit in the movies, we see like at the end of the day, if you ever seen what an actual rape is, which I haven't had the disservice of seeing. Yeah. But to listen to that video, that shit hit my heartstrings, and it was like So to say, then you need to change the idea that it's a rape fucking culture, bro. Because that's sexual assault.
Here's the thought process behind that. Yeah, that dude grabbed the ass in the club today. But what if he catches old girl outside after the club? And nobody said something. You saw him grab that ass.
I saw him grab that ass, but are you implying that the guy that grabs that is equivalent? Like
if she's like,
you're like saying like that weed is a fucking like weed is a gateway drug. It's like if you grab asses, then you forcibly rape.
No, but
that's what you're implying.
It has the potential, and you said nothing to your.
But that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense.
You said nothing to your mans.
I don't agree with that. Like I'm not saying I agree with that. He's a person that like if a person just grabs a girl's ass like that, like I'm not with all of that.
Diminishing her feeling of she's an inanimate object to this man. You're diminishing that.
And that's derogatory in its core, and I definitely disagree with that. But hold up,
would you check your man for grabbing an ass in the club and she was like, nah, get off me?
It depends on the situation. It depends.
That's the culture.
But listen, what I'm saying. Would I check my man if I fucking was like I was in his crib and I heard a girl screaming and saying. I'm absolutely. Saying like, yo, you're raping me, like, or saying like, no, get off. I would check my man for that.
Oh, absolutely. I would beat my man's ass.
Exactly, son. I'm coming in there, I'm breaking that shit up, bro. And at the end of the day, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, so those are two different things. Just like smoking weed is not a gateway drug. It's just because you smoke this weed doesn't mean you're gonna fucking smoke crack tomorrow. You know, just because you fucking say, hey, shawty, your ass fat as shit, or you touch a girl's titties, you're wrong. You're not right. I'm not claiming that you're right. You're wrong. But does that mean that I should realize vilify you as a rapist? No. Because rape, that to me, that's diminishing what rape really is, and that's fucked up. Rape is actually fucked the fuck up. And I feel like we're disseminating.
We need deeper definition.
Absolutely. I think we already do. I do think we need deeper definition, and I think that to make these overarching narratives talking about rape culture, I think that's disingenuous to the people that actually got raped. Because when you include motherfuckers who catcall and let's say the grab asses, when you include them in the same box as somebody who forcibly fucking took somebody's fucking I don't even want to explain it, but like if you're incorporating them in the same aspect, that's like incorporating somebody between I punched you in the face and I stabbed you in the neck. You know what I'm saying? Like you're bringing that together, and that's not right. You know what I'm saying? I don't incorporate, just like I'm not going to say just because black men have a higher statistic probability of murdering somebody, I'm not going to say black men are murderers.
But
that's why I'm not going to create that.
Here's the question, and this is deeper than this conversation. Who defines that line? Because
our justice system, socially. I'm answering your question.
Because ultimately, it's the same reaction from the victim.
If that's the same, and the fucked up part about it, if you look, I've read a lot of testimony, and when you talk to people that have actually been raped, they like these women. I'm not gonna make a general blanket statement because I don't like those. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of women that real life would look. Imagine if, and this is what I like to look. Imagine if you was a woman who you was chilling with a dude, and then next thing you know, he came through, and you was like, I just came over to chill or whatever. I ain't want to do nothing, and he says, man, nah, fuck that, I'm coming to get that, and he fucking rapes you. Imagine how it would feel being a woman when another woman says, this dude touched my titty, and we on the same lane. Like it. I feel what you're saying because this dude touched my titty. You be like, bitch, you don't know what the fuck are you talking about? And especially us as black people, we should motherfucking be with that shit, bruh. Like, look, we motherfucking like at the end of the day, it's like motherfuckers want to talk about oppression, right? Like, let's say LGBT and transgenders will try to say, young, we've been oppressed for so long, and you like, well, hold up one second. We were slaves. We were slaves. We were fucking. We were systematically. Oh my God, we were fucked up, and to try to compare your particular oppression to ours, you're diluting the shit that we really went through. And for me, that's why I don't say that it's rape culture, because to me, when you say that rape culture includes motherfuckers touching asses to people absolutely beating bitches' asses and fucking forcibly putting their dick in them, that dilutes what rape really is. And that's why I have a problem with it.
That makes sense. The issue I have is with any of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, call it whatever you want, rape culture or whatever. I have an issue with any of it. I have an issue with any woman,
and that's fine,
who feels like, any
unwanted touch or things of that nature. And that's fine. So then change the name. Change the name.
That's the issue. I think that's the issue. But here's the thing:
when we're not gonna within you, because you're doing it for this is like in the realm of social media now, because you're doing it for clicks. See, because if you just said sexual assault and sexual impropriety culture, then that ain't gonna grab people's attention. Yeah. Because that's really what you're talking about. You talking about sexual assault and sexual impropriety coupled with up into rape. That's too long a narrative. And that ain't gonna grab people's attention. But if you just say rape culture, you're gonna grab people's attention. The only problem with that is that you're diluting
what
real rape is, and that shit is fucked up. And us as men, us as black men, and us as men in general aren't for that shit.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. But look, man, we over here. We could talk for 4,000 hours, man. Thank you for coming through, man. I know you gotta go ahead and do your little thing, man, and put your shit together, man. This shit was absolutely lit, man. This was a long fucking podcast.
Yeah.
This was a long fucking podcast. But every time this man comes through, this is why I appreciate it. I appreciate this guy, because at the end of the day, we can sit here, we can agree, we can disagree, and at the end of the day, we still gonna be cool regardless.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. I know for a fact this guy's a good man.
Oh yeah, I learned a lot. And next time this time
I learned a lot as well. I
guarantee you, I got some people who gonna watch this and be like, nigga, you fucked up because you could have said this, and this.
Bring them on, shawty. Like, if you have an issue with anything that I said, come on the podcast. Like, motherfucker, we could go live. If you have an issue with anything I said, I'm willing to learn from people. I'm willing to learn.
That's the thing.
And
you know what I'm saying? Like,
defend your point. Don't just fucking comment in the shit and be like, nah, man. Defend your point and make an actual intellectual argument for what the fuck you talking about. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, and that's what it's always been about with me and you. And truth be told, we don't disagree as much as it seems like we do.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Truth be told, we have differences of opinion. But the moment somebody says some shit that's like, yo, that makes sense, then it's like, I still believe what I ultimately believe, but I can see someone else's point of view. And I think that goes back to the original point in the video that we watched. It's like, people say it's either this or this, and they're not willing to listen to the other side.
Exactly.
And that's what I have an issue ultimately with the video, because when what's her face?
Candace Owens.
Yeah, Candace Owens. When she said that,
she brought up a lot of good points.
She absolutely did. When it comes to conservatism versus and the thing is,
I think we need both. I think we need conservatism and liberalism.
I can agree with that. But here's where I have an issue again, and fuck it, let's run it till 10 because it's 9:20. So we got 15.
It was extended. All right, fuck it, bro.
The issue that again I ultimately have is that if you only have two sides, and truth be told, if you're gonna talk about black politics, you cannot say that either side is looking out for our best interest. You really cannot. Let's forget about conservatism. Let's forget about liberalism. Let's talk about just the parties. Nobody is looking out for our interest. Like, you can honestly say that. You can honestly say nobody is saying, yo, let's go into these communities and give money. Let's go into these communities and give jobs.
I mean,
let's go into these communities and give opportunities.
This is where I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that, bro. Because at the end of the day, I'm not saying that like Democrats or Republicans they both have the answer, but even to think that they have the answer,
Darius said it best. Politics were never truly about us. Period.
That is a good point. That is a good
never
point.
Was.
So then,
so
we shouldn't. So at the end of the day, I think that we should, whoever presents themselves and has a really viable plan for how they're going to enrich the black community. You know what I'm saying? Nothing against them. Not the white community, not LGBT, not the Asian community,
not the overall America.
Not over. When people over here real live are talking about enriching and helping promote the black community, then we should vote for them, whether they're Republican or. And shout out to Mr. My bad. I'm gonna throw a shout out real quick. Shout out to Mr. Ward 6 because he's a perfect example. You know what I'm saying? Like Nate Brown. He came on my show not too long ago. I'll probably post a video tomorrow, but. What he is a perfect example of the leaders that we need to promote because he's in the community. Mm-hmm. He's in the community, knocking on doors, trying to facilitate as best way as he can through the sacrifice of his own family, a better system and a better outcome for black people, and that's what we need to be focused on.
And I'm absolutely with that. Now here's the issue. Not necessarily an issue with him or an issue with
look.
The issue is with the system. Yeah, I know what's going on, bro.
He said the Democratic Party is one of the worst things in the black community.
Oh, I'm already hip. Here's the issue. No party has ever taken a step for us. They've taken a step with us. They've taken a step and said, we'll help out everybody. Particularly the Democratic Party. They're famous for that shit.
Well, then how could you realize, like, so when people go into opposition and say we shouldn't be voting Democrat, then why do you have an issue with the Candace Owens of the world?
Because the Republican Party is flat out saying we definitely not helping y'all niggas.
That's not true.
I mean, look at Trump.
I know he's one person in the Republican Party,
but he stands for what their party stands for.
What does the party stand for?
I mean, he's clearly their representative.
I'm asking you what Trump stands for.
What Trump stands for is definitely racism. It's definitely sexism. It's definitely
how.
How? Okay, let's take.
I'm just tired of people saying. Like, I'm not saying that I don't agree with you, but I'm just tired of people saying Trump this, Trump that, and then they go off these platitudes where they can't necessarily defend their argument.
Okay, let's take a look at last year's. Let's take a look at last year's. What was that? The Charlottesville. He was like, oh yeah, you know, it was bad people on both sides. Someone fighting for, you know, Nazism, and then, you know, how
so people. Were there I'm gonna ask you, and I'm not,
and I agree with Darius. Trump stands for Trump. Yes.
There you go. Exactly. So to say that he stands for, so to get back to the Charlottesville issue, were both parties righteous in what they were talking about? Were there bad actors on both sides? I'm asking you that question. That's a yes or no, and you can defend it by your point.
Yes or no? Were there bad people on both sides? Yes, but there are bad people on every side. One side specifically stands for anti-black, anti-Jewish, anti-anybody but white heterosexual male. So again, and it goes back to that same. It goes back to that same initial
like, do you
argument.
like? And this is my problem with that though. Like, it's like, do you really like? And I'm not defending them at all. And this is my only part, because I try to get the balance in all situations so that we can all come together as far as our viewpoint of what it is. So, name me, what's the big difference between a white nationalist and a black nationalist? What are the main differences? Because what a white nationalist promotes, right? And we could talk about, you can go on their page and what they technically march on. And I'm not even saying I'm with them, because obviously I don't fuck with identity politics, point blank, period. But like, if you're gonna say what a white nationalist is, and this is how I knew that when I was real, I would say about probably like 5 months ago, this is how I knew I wasn't supposed to be in the black consciousness super community.
And I agree with that
because it's like, when you're promoting that the black man is God and we are the superior race and we're just being downtrodden on, you follow similar themes of the white nationalist parties, which says that we are superior. You know what I'm saying?
And that's why
we don't have no issue with them, but at the end of the day, we're celebrating our whiteness.
And see, that's where I have an issue with both sides, and I'm absolutely not a black nationalist as well. My thing is, I want equality. If it's capable, regardless of the spectrum.
See, but when I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt
let's
you.
Go back to but
when you say equality, because what equality represents, especially if we're talking about equality of opportunity. Equality of opportunity, especially based on, if we're just going to go by what's going on now and then trying to implement plans to make things equal, then you're not going to see the same results. You're going to see a fact that because our culture plays a part in it, because
the
economics, individuals play a part in it, you're not going to see an equal outcome, bruh.
Fine.
Is that fine? Is that fine?
I'm okay with that. I am absolutely. We're talking about me.
Because at the end of the day, we all know that Asians do better in everything economically than whites, point blank, period. And we'll even throw that out there. You know, second generation immigrants do better, whether it be West Indian, whether it be Haitian, they do better than whites do, than black Americans do. So this is where we get into this is where the shit gets really complicated and muddy. And I think that there's a bunch of perspectives in which we could look into the world. But for me, it's like, I agree with some of the conservative idea, because conservatism is an idea, Republican is a party. But the conservative idea is that we all have a personal responsibility to make our life as prosperous as we can. And that it's not anybody else's, this is where I get libertarian on it, it's not anybody else's job to pick us up to hold us up.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I am not disagreeing with that. But you cannot discount how far, particularly, and it's just me speaking as a black man, you cannot discount the fact that we are behind the 8 ball on so many things. And it's not necessarily just who we are. It's policies that have been in place for 500 years.
Fair enough. And I totally agree with that. But what is the percentage of it? What can you actually control? And that's the real problem. That's the real issue. What can you actually control? Can you control?
Okay. So now we're talking about reparations.
I'm not talking about reparations. What I'm talking about,
because if we're
what I'm talking about specifically is what you can control is your own individual attitude, perspective, and effort that you put into the world.
And I can agree with that. But here's where I kind of got to agree with what Malcolm X said. You can't stab somebody with a 9-inch knife, pull it out 6 inches, and talk about progress. You have to pull it out the full, because if I have a knife in your back and I pull it out just a little bit, you're still not healed. I have to pull it out entirely. I have to bandage that wound. I have to make sure that you're fully healed. And America has not done that for the black man. He's not done that for the black community.
Absolutely. But if you're going to, like, this is the whole...
how can
if you're going to wait for the black man or the government to fix what's going on to make your life more successful, then you are going to be waiting, and this is where I think a lot of conservatives fall on. If you're going to wait for the government, who isn't even designed to foster any type of... They're just supposed to be facilitators in this particular... in our economic structure. If you're going to wait for the government or the white man or whoever you think is the daddy in charge to foster an easier living for yourself, you are going to be behind
people. I
people.
Absolutely agree.
You're going to be behind. You're going to be behind people that are real life working hard to make this shit more prosperous.
Wait on it. But what I'm saying is, I would prefer a government who didn't hinder me, and I would prefer a government who actually helped me, or and based on the original video, who even fucking acknowledged that I'm behind the 8 ball.
Now this and you know that's real. There's lots of elements to that's the truth. But I would say, all right, so shout out to Darius real quick. He said at least Republicans are straight up with it. Democrats got us fooled. Basically, I think the sentiment he's trying to say is that basically, would you rather vote for a person who tells you straight up that I have my own interest in mind and I ain't fucking with you?
Yeah.
Or would you rather deal with a motherfucker who tells you that they fuck with you? We all about Will. We all about what Will got going on. But the reality is that they're just
not vote for Hillary.
There you go. But even Democratic Party in general, like if you're talking about a motherfucker, at least, especially for a lot of like hood dudes and things of that nature, people who understand street life, I would rather I could trust the motherfucker
who told me up front they didn't.
Who told me up front they don't fuck with me more than a snake behind my back that's telling me they fuck with me, right?
And again, back to that original video. Then what's the alternative if those are the only two options? I'm not
well. If that's the alternative,
that's literally what we're presented with in every election.
So then we don't.
So can you blame somebody who's just like,
I'm not blaming
voting?
Well, I really. Well, no. It depends on what election you vote on.
It's either like somebody who's
because I think
really
smaller elections are a lot more important. Like
really
the councilman,
or I pretend to care about you, but I've never really addressed any issues in what you deal with. Now, me personally, I try to vote in every election. I definitely try to vote in every local election. But again, and here's the thing. I live in a place that's predominantly black. So I know whatever I vote with, even if I do an all Democratic ticket, it's probably going to be an all Democratic. You know, we're in a Democratic area. I voted for Jill Stein knowing damn well that Hillary was going to win Maryland. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just the nature of where I stay. But let's talk about these places who are right on the edge where there's no tell. Can you really blame them for not voting when neither party has their interest? And that's what the video didn't talk about. It talked about how we shouldn't vote for the Democrats because they don't have our interest, without mentioning that that Republicans don't have our interest as well. There's no third option.
Well, if that's the case, then it's about perspective for me. Then if that's the case, then people shouldn't be all on dicks about what's going on in our Democratic election. What we should really be focused on is what you can do as an individual to help our community.
What can we do other than
motherfuckers like to be a mouthpiece? This is the whole thing. Like motherfuckers love to be a mouthpiece for that. I'm for this. I'm with these motherfuckers. I'm with them. Motherfuckers love to be a mouthpiece, but the real change is gonna happen within our own community. So I don't care whether you vote or the fuck not. To keep it a buck, I can give a shit whether you vote. But how much you contribute to your community, when you see, like, when you go to the gas station and you see these young brothers out here asking for some bullshit, give them some kind words. Give like real life, give them opportunity.
Real shit.
That's what that's about. Like, and that's and what that is though. What that's doing though is taking personal responsibility.
No.
And that's gonna lift us up.
Here's where
government ain't gonna lift us up.
Here's where it comes back to. And I'm not saying that this is the case for everybody. I'm not even saying this is the case for me. It's hard.
Then what are you saying?
It's hard to put someone in a position where they can help, where you can help them, if you're not in a position where you can help yourself. Like, I'd love to give any nigga at the gas station a job, but it's gonna take me another 5 to 10 years to get into a place where I can do that. Had, you know, knock on wood, had I not gone to college, or had I done this, or had I done that, or had some shit just gone right for me, I could be in that position. Now, I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
But there's so many factors, we can't put it on one thing. But when it comes,
so then if you're gonna
politics,
blame, this is the whole thing. So if we're gonna go to politics, like, so then if you're talking about you can't put it on one thing, there's certain things we can control, and we can control our own ability to contribute to our community.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with that.
So then the focus on, if you're gonna focus on, what's the name though? Like, if you're gonna focus on what the government,
education system.
See, because other communities don't focus on what the government can do for them. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to like shout out the fucking the Jews. I'm not trying to shout out the Asian community.
But
you're talking about the communities that focus.
That because they've never been behind the 8 ball like we have. They never
That's a lie.
experienced
That's a lie.
redlining.
That's
They've
a lie.
never experienced.
What are you talking about? Do you remember the reason why most Asians are in this country is because of when they were building the railroads, we started in indentured servitude to these motherfucking Asians and brought them the fuck over to the United States to work. So to say that they haven't dealt with the same you could say oppressions or obstacles that comes with.
Here's the thing. They brought them over from Asia to do that, right? We were the fuck here. We were here. They could have gave us those same fucking jobs, and they didn't.
Of course.
So we're without. So again, that's just another example.
We're without,
of how
but like
we're still behind the 8 ball.
But my point is that the way that, like, you could talk about the past, and you can definitely, there's an infinite amount of information where we could say that why fucking America does us wrong.
But we're talking about the 40s, 50s, 60s.
We could
wasn't there then.
You can go back longer than that. But the way that you progress forward is not between circling the past and expecting somebody else to help you out that ain't never helped you out. That's the whole thing. If your mother and father ain't never helped you out, if you keep looking towards them, your father ain't never show up in your life. If he ain't if you waiting on him to come back to make sure that your life is gonna be good, then you fucked up out here.
Oh, absolutely.
And so then you focusing on the wrong shit.
True. But then why did we watch this video in the first place? Because it obviously has no impact on our community anyway.
I think that it brings up solid points that we could debate.
Well, if it's our democratic right to vote, but we've established just now that it's not affected us in any way, then why are we voting?
This wasn't Tim's. This was not this was not me coming out here to say
sense.
This wasn't a rock to vote for Tim. This was not a rock to vote for Tim. Let that be known. This was not a rock to vote. This was for us to realize, focus on taking responsibility and being contributors in our community. And I think that when we focus on other things like the overall state of the world and not focusing on our particular community, how we can individually help our community, then we're divulging energy that ain't gonna go nowhere.
Oh,
if you think that if you need to focus on the government to fucking come help us out and get these reparations and all of that, you talking to a fucking deaf ear. That's like a nigga who ain't never had his father in his life. You waiting for this nigga to come back? You waiting for this nigga to come back?
Voting, then we're basically saying
the topic wasn't going. The topic itself that's pinned on the joint is talk about conservatism in America. Okay. So it's an idea. It's an idea of how we should govern our lives.
It's ultimately, the video that we showed, or the video that you will show,
it was talking about some ideas of
whether
conservatism.
or not we should lean towards the Democrats or the Republicans. What am I incorrect?
No, my whole idea was like,
so if that's
does that video have points?
One of them motherfuckers give a shit about us. Can you really say, well, I mean, there's really nothing to say about that.
No, there is, because at the end of the day, like, motherfucker, just like Martin Luther King did, like, lots of shit in his fucking, like lots of fucking, you know, he was in the sex parties and all that, cheating on his wife, all of that. What we should do is we should take ideas.
All right,
I'm gonna bring it around. The idea is that all right, cool. I'm gonna bring it around. The idea is that we need to separate men and people from ideas, and that particular video had good ideas that I think could be productive in our community, and that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about as far as perspective.
I absolutely agree. If the response to that video is, well, shit, none of these motherfuckers is really working.
It doesn't matter the response.
But
the reality is the ideas.
That's what I'm saying. The idea has to lead to a response. I can think of something all day, but if I don't do shit with it, then what's the point?
No, because ideas are the things that carry on past people living. This is the reason why, like, Martin Luther King and the way that he approached the situation was more effective than what Malcolm X did. And I was you already know. I read the autobiography. Yeah. I was really deep into Malcolm X. But we're talking about we're not talking about what do you call it? We're not talking about justice. We're talking about productivity and what is going to be the most effective way of moving forward. And that's what I'm talking about. And the way we move forward is we're going to take these ideas, right? That regardless, I think that Candace Owens is obviously hurt. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And obviously she's too extreme for somebody that I would even deal with. Plus she dates she talks about the black community all the time and then dates a white guy and been dating white guys, but whatever. Yeah. Like, my whole idea is that we could take these ideas from people, and if we recognize that they're good ideas, then we can use them, and we can develop a perspective that will help us be productive in the future.
Okay.
And focusing on what people should give us and and everything that's fucked up with our lives or everything that's fucked up within the system.
That's what politics is. That's not what politics is. I mean, that's you're basically saying you represent what will move me forward. That's basically what politics is.
That's not what politics is.
What is politics then?
I mean, we already know that's nowhere near the definition of what politics is.
Please explain to me what I'm voting for. Because when I go to the ballot box and I say this person, this legislative law, this legislative law, this legislative law, what am I saying then if not to say I want you to represent my interest?
I do like I understand where you're coming from. My whole idea is that I'm not necessarily, I didn't say, we were talking about the ideas of conservatism. And my whole idea isn't like, oh, we need to all jump on the Republican Party, or we need to jump on the Democrat, or we need to vote, and we need to all be libertarian and vote this and that way. I think that what we really need to focus on is, and I've said it time and time again, we need to focus on personal responsibility and not only first taking care of yourself, then taking care of your family, then taking care of the community.
Oh, absolutely.
And if we focus on who's in office and what other people are doing, then we're distracting ourselves from the real issues at hand.
Okay, now I can agree with that. But those are two separate concepts, bro.
That's not two separate concepts when we're talking about what we're talking about in everyday social media.
Because yes, absolutely. Worry about yourself, your family, your community. But when it comes to your community, do you not have to vote in the interest of you, your family, and your community? You have to. You're saying like that politics is a part of what affects that community. What is a part of what affects your family? Is a part of what
to
affects
a percentage,
your family.
To a percentage. But I think to a percentage, right? But to a percentage, it affects the community. But the reality is that real on the ground boot work and focus in your community is going to affect your community way more than politics ever. So if we understand that, if you're going to agree with me on that, then our idea of focusing on or focusing on who is in poison, but that's my whole idea. Like so then the whole idea is that the Asian community hasn't had endless representatives.
And no one's saying that.
And even the second generation immigrants, Africans, they haven't had that representatives.
I will
so then that's my whole point though. That's what I'm saying.
We don't do what we need to do within the black community. But that was not the topic at hand.
The topic was conservatism in the black community. Now, mind you, conservatism is an idea and a way of thinking, right? That's not tied to any political party. You could be a conservative in
And
your
still
ideology
vote
and vote Democrat, which
Right.
a lot of the black community does.
Right.
A lot of black people believe in traditional marriages between a man and a woman, and that's the idea
Right.
of that we should stick with. A lot like so.
Oh,
That's my
absolutely.
whole point. We're talking about ideas.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. That's what the topic was. The shit said pinned like conservatism.
in the black community. I'm
That-
the one
that's
who
why
came
my
up with that
idea.
topic. Now, that being said, the reason why we chose that topic was based on this video, which was talking about. I mean, it wasn't. I don't even think it mentioned the words conservative or liberalism. I don't think it did that. It mentioned Democrat and Republican, or Democrat only. Am I lying?
It did. I mean,
So
it was
if we're talking
Republican
about
and
just
Democrat.
what the initial, yes, that was the topic, and we've discussed conservatism in the black community. But let's talk about the video. You cannot have self, family, and community without talking about the politics that impact that. You can't. I mean, it may not be as big a portion, but it absolutely does affect. And if it doesn't, then why vote in the first place?
Like I said, I wasn't out here talking about rock the vote, this, and that. What I was talking about specifically was there are ideas that when we find that these ideas make sense intellectually, then we shouldn't not adopt these ideas based on somebody's political viewpoint.
Okay,
and that's my whole idea.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
So then that's what we're talking about with the video. The video presented a certain amount of ideas. The video was talking about that the black community has not been served by the Democrats.
Okay.
Obviously, you know what I'm saying? It was also talking about how
Make America Great stands for us as well.
Right.
It did say that. Now, that being said, how do we put that into action politically? Which was what the video was geared towards.
How do we put that into action politically? I think that what it presented for me, right? Because obviously it's just my opinion, but what it presented for me was we should not be held by a particular party just because we feel like that they advocate for us.
Oh, but
I think that hold on, let me finish. Let me finish the part. Let me finish the point. And so the idea is that we should the idea is that we need to be able to take these ideas and use them productively within our own community. And that's the whole idea. And for who we should vote for, I think that we shouldn't be held, because that's what we historically have been. We shouldn't be held to the Democratic Party. If a Republican is talking more shit that benefits us than the other, because especially with the way the progressives and Democratic Party is talking about for the black man.
Hold on. Okay. All right. That being said, here's what I found when I voted. Neither party has really served my interest, and neither party has.
What up, Nate? What up, Tyson?
Neither party has served my interest, and neither party has progressively has even looked at me. Democrats, yes, they hold on to my vote like grim death, like it's not going anywhere.
So then take some responsibility.
But here's the thing.
So
Republicans ain't going there either.
Well, I'm not necessarily.
Where do we go when it comes time to vote?
I think that we need the only thing the video I think that the main
point ideas. I'm asking for practicality.
All right, so practically, whoever particular positions most fit our narrative that we're trying to promote, that's who we should vote for.
Which has been
and the Democratic Party, but now it's changing. How can you not say that?
Okay.
All right, so let me just say that obviously we know, because the Democratic Party itself, right? Instead of we were all talking about Black Lives Matter, right? Which originally started when we're talking about black men being killed, right? But essentially now the Democratic Party is pushes the narrative of LGBT rights, transgenderism, right? Progressive socialistic thinking, right? That economically doesn't make any sense. So now that the Democratic Party, which used to be about the working class, right? like historically. So now that their narrative is switching from the working class people, which now more black people are getting into this working class and this middle class, now that they're promoting an agenda that's based on identity politics, that now we're more focused on a population that's somewhere near 0.5%. Now that we're focused on people's rights, now that we took the black man's struggle of being persecuted by the police, and we grabbed everybody onto that, and then we switched our fucking bases, you know what I'm saying? And we started focusing on something else. Now that they're switching up their narrative, is it time to start moving our vote in a different direction?
And I'm not saying that that's not the case.
But
here's the thing. Here's what I found with the two-party system. Here's what I have found with the two-party system. I may be wrong. I will be glad to see any comments otherwise. While you mention all those things that are absolutely relevant, the Republican Party, the opposite party, has said, "Oh, we still not fucking with y'all."
That's not. That's not
but,
necessarily true.
But
that's not necessarily
what we're
true.
primarily going against is everything that they're talking about. We're against. So
that's not necessarily true. If you and a lot of times we don't hear the conservative point. We don't hear the conservative point view on CNN or MSNBC or anything like that. And Fox is like it's hearing the mother. Yeah, like Fox is hearing the view with headphones on at 100. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they really.
But if you're looking at a lot of the conservative view, the conservatives are now.
Let's stop talking conservative and progressive or conservative.
All right,
and
so
liberal.
Republican.
Let's talk about Republican and Democrat.
All right, so the Republican view now is that now it seems that they are a lot open to ideas than the Democratic Party has been for the longest time.
Please give me some of these ideas.
Well, for example, if you don't agree with the Me Too movement, which is believe all women, Democrats vilify you. That's a fact. If you don't agree with, and that's a crazy thing because a lot of black people tend to not agree. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't agree with any particular policy that goes with, let's say, super progressive, gender biased, or not even just gender biased, even socialistic programs that have been proven.
Okay.
But let me finish if you're gonna ask me the question.
Yeah.
If you're gonna ask me the question, like if you're talking about these socialized programs that have been proven not to be effective, we've tried like the ideas of TANF and the ideas of these programs that have been promoted and defended by the Democratic Party. When you disagree with them, I'm just talking about fundamentally. When you disagree with them, they vilify you. And the Republican parties are the Republican Party, and I'm not even trying to really defend them, but the idea is that a lot of times they're open to conversation on that. And whereas Democrats, you could talk about who we want to talk about. We could talk about Ocasio-Cortez, motherfucking shorty and the Democratic Socialists up there in New York. We could talk about Don Lemon. We could talk about all these. If you don't agree with them, they don't even let you speak.
When it came to the questions directed towards me, it was what's going on the local level. But when it came to questions asked about the Republican Party, these are the general ideas. I'm asking you the same questions on a belief structure in terms of what's going to help my community, because that's the same thing you asked me about the Democratic Party. Right. What is the Republican Party response to that?
Their response is kind of similar to what they've been talking about as far as they're and I'm not saying I agree with these ideas, but they're talking about doing away with programs that haven't been effective, such as not healthcare, but such as the programs of TANF and and not Social Security, but of fucking, what do you call it? Section 8 and those particular vouchers and things of that nature. They're talking about these ideas have not been effective for the community. These ideas that were supposedly brought up to bring people out of the poverty that they were in. When we look at the statistical data, they're not bringing the people out of there. They're not. We've done it. We've waited We're sitting here and look at 30, 40 years. And people that get on food stamps or that get on TANF or that get on all these social programs, it doesn't bring them out of poverty. It actually keeps them within poverty. You have a more likelihood if you never was on TANF, regardless of your economic situation, to rise above that. So they're addressing those particular issues. Now, am I saying I agree with the entire Republican movement? Obviously not. I'm my own individual person.
Okay.
Nor am I a Republican. But the problem is that this is my fundamental problem. The Democratic Party used to be a party of ideas, and that we all should
Bad ideas
live.
versus no
bad ideas, good whatever you want to talk.
Bad
but it was
ideas versus
but
no
that your
ideas.
idea should be heard. And the problem that because they've linked into identity politics, now the idea, if you have an idea that goes counter to the narrative, you shouldn't speak. If you're a man talking about abortion, you can't have an opinion. If you're talking about the black community, if you're white, you can't talk. If you're whatever you want, if you are not a member of that particular ideology or that particular group, then you can't even have a conversation. If you're not a man, you can't talk about the Me Too movement. We all should just take a step back and shut the fuck up. That's my problem. And with that direction, that's my fucking problem.
I cannot
because if we can't, that's the only way. None of us are 100% geniuses.
Okay.
The only way that we even figure anything out is being able to talk to each other, no matter what background you're from.
And I don't disagree with that. Here's where I have the issue with the Republican Party. They say, let's take away TANF. Let's take away Section 8. Let's take away all these other programs that we have implemented.
That are not effective.
But they do not have a replacement for people who have been behind the 8 ball based on policies that that the country has implemented since its birth.
Now, and this is one of the this is the argument, but I'm gonna put that out there because you made a claim. You were talking about all right.
So my thing is, if you're going to take something out that's helping anybody or helping somebody, depending on, I mean, even if whether their situation is their black woman who simply just did not have enough, black man, white man, whatever their situation is, if they don't have enough to maintain that basic quality standard that was guaranteed life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, Bill of Rights, all this other bullshit that was in the American Constitution. Now, mind you,
obviously, housing was not a part of the Constitution.
But I mean, there are certain liberties in life that you need as a human being to survive. Food is one of them. This is something that's not psychologists but people have food, shelter, community. Is that not something that has been historically and scientifically proven to be needed, a human need?
Absolutely, but like,
so if that's the case,
this is the problem with your argument because being able to, is it the government's job to provide everyone with? We are just, if you're talking about outcome, whether you have a sustainable house or a sustainable amount of living. This is the problem with that argument, is because at the end of the day, is it the government's job to make sure you have a house? Is that in the Constitution? No, it's not. Do you even think that it's the government's job for you to have a house? Is it a job? Is it the government's job to make sure that you afford a living wage? Is it? Let's get deep into it.
Wages, absolutely.
They're not regulating wages. Businesses are regulating wages. All right. Now you can put in the federal minimum wage, but like at the end of the day, like you're talking about the people that really are regulating wages are businesses. So, but is it the government's job to make sure that you and your family have a roof over their head? That's an argument. That's an argument. And the reality is that this is the problem that I see, because I grew up in a middle class family where we sat up here and like both my parents were in the military and they struggled. You know what I'm saying? And they put me through private school, especially in high school. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And they worked hard for the things that they achieved. You know what I'm saying? And we're talking about, when we're talking about allocating funds, and that's what taxes do. When we're talking about allocating funds, right, from people who in the middle class predominantly, for people that have a bad way in life now we're getting into an ethical issue that I don't necessarily agree with. I think that, like, at the end of the day, the government doesn't, like, this is my personal opinion, and we can end on our opinions because we're gonna get into 3 hours just in a second.
And I'm
but
fine
like,
with it.
but like, right. But my whole thing is that, like, my problem is that we have a feeling that somehow our parents owe us something. Our government owes us something. Everybody owes us something.
Here's where
they don't owe us shit.
But here's where
nobody owes us nothing.
Here's where I have an issue with that. I would be in absolute agreement with that. If historically,
this is where I'm about to fuck you.
If they guaranteed us the same rights that they guaranteed white people. If you cannot say redlining was not a thing.
It was, absolutely. I'm not saying that's not fucked up.
Okay,
but if you're going to say historically, motherfuckers say historically, and then they just jump between the last 200 years. Let's get real historical for you niggas. Okay. Let's get real historical, okay? Because people have this idea that white people have been running this shit since the beginning. Right, or the majority of time. The reality is,
American history. American history.
But if you're gonna say, then say America. Then say America, because you're not talking about historically. Because when you say historically, you're not gonna get away from historic. Because where did slavery come from? Who had the longest empire?
Exactly. Let's talk about American history.
The Ottoman Empire ran.
What the fuck does that have to do with how I'm living in America now?
And I'll tell you exactly how it has to do with how you're living in America now. People have this, number one, the way that us humans have developed over the course of evolution and time. The fact that we've even created a system where some people actually have half a chance is nothing short of a fucking miracle. And it's not that white people are inherently evil, because the Ottoman Empire, which ran the fucking world from 600 AD to close to 1200 AD, right? That was the longest empire that ever existed. It started the nation, it started Islam, and it started the idea of Muhammad and Muhammad the first and second, third, fourth, whatever the fuck you talking about. Like, at the end of the day, that was an empire that ruled the world, that created the economic system of slavery, you know what I'm saying? And that perpetuated the idea of a ruling class, right, above all else.
Okay.
So my whole thing, when you're talking about America as if it's itself is on its own personal evil identity that was just created in order to systematically fuck over somebody else. But that's not taking it into historical context.
Okay, well, let's talk about what
Name a society better.
Let's talk about what they wrote. They wrote the Constitution. They wrote the Bill of Rights.
Facts.
They wrote these things.
At least we had that. I'm not even, you're getting me into a point where I'm defending something that I totally agree with.
Supposed to give us equal, everyone who is considered a human, which they didn't consider us for a good part of American history.
Fair.
They did not give us equal rights based on what they wrote. Fuck the Ottoman Empire. Because we're talking about just American history.
And that's so then take history out your motherfucking dialogue.
I said
take history out. Then stop saying historically.
You the one who took it to the Ottoman Empire.
Because you're saying historically.
Contextually, we're talking about America.
But if you're gonna say history, bro,
what the fuck does the Ottoman Empire have to do with how America wrote the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and everything that should equal up to?
Because if you're gonna say how we developed our time into current status, we have to look at things historically. And if you're gonna talk about the Bill of Rights, you can criticize. And this is my whole thing. I understand, like, people need to, like, that. It all goes to the human form. We are not perfect. We are hypocrites, and we sit up here and we say one thing and we do another. I totally agree. So
let's address that.
Let's address it. But let's look at it within. You talking about context? Let's look at it within context of everything that's going on. And I think that we don't have to get emotionally charged as things as emotionally charged as we do.
Based on what it's always
based on any other economic system that's ever
or in world history. America's the best that we can do, without saying, which is what I've seen.
Name another economy. Name one.
No one is saying that America is not a good country.
The best country
that has ever been in existence. But that does not mean that it cannot be fixed, and that there have not been things
a problem with that.
To hold other people back within its own context. cannot say that. As a black man in America, you cannot say that there are not. If you go out in the street nowadays and you commit a crime, and a white person commits a crime, there's a huge possibility that there will be two different punishments.
But if I went to China and the same thing happened, if I went to China or Russia or any of the other, if I was in Russia and I was a person from Dagestan and I committed a crime within Russia, would I be persecuted higher than somebody who's a Russian citizen? Absolutely.
But we're American citizens in America.
See, but you can't, like, this is the whole thing.
How can you say, I'm saying, my whole argument is, put us on the equal plane. Put us on the equal plane. If you want to take away these programs, great. Give us an equality. Give us an equality.
How do you go about presenting that equality without shorting somebody else? We've
been shorted for 500 years.
So it's cool to short somebody else then.
Fuck them at this point, because we've been shorted for 500 years.
There we go. And that's the only, there is the intellectual inconsistency. What you're talking, you're not saying equality. You're saying that other people. No. This is the whole thing. What you're saying is you're not talking about equality. You're talking about justice in a sense. You're talking about in order to make things an equal playing ground, because black people were shitted on historically, then the way to go about fixing that problem is to shit on other people.
No, I'm saying, well, fine. If that's what you want to qualify it as, absolutely.
That's not intellectually consistent, nor ethically.
That's
not ethically consistent if you're talking about equality.
Nothing in this country has been ethically consistent for 500 years when it comes to black people.
Fair enough.
When it comes to black people.
But if you're gonna make an argument, then I feel like if you're trying to be intellectually consistent,
you can't say this works. You cannot say this system works because it is still only working for certain people.
That's not true.
Oh, come on. You cannot say, as a black man in America. Again, I just used the example. In America, does
your mom own a house?
Absolutely.
Has my family been somewhat successful?
Absolutely.
So then what are you talking about? Really?
What am I talking about? Do you own a house?
Do
you own a house?
I'm getting there.
All right.
I'm pretty financially stable.
Okay, and I'm pretty financially stable.
But how could that even happen if the entire system is predicated on you not making it?
You are I'm not saying that it's absolutely guaranteed any black baby born is going to get a gun to the head and popped out of the vagina. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you cannot say in this country that we are equal to in policy or historically, that we have been equal or given the same opportunity as white people or any other.
But I agree with what you're saying. But your solutions to that aren't ethically consistent. Your solutions to that is to discriminate. Your solutions to that, and that's what's wrong with a lot of the policy. Your solutions to making things equal is to discriminate on the people that were, on the people that were actually that benefited from the discrimination prior.
Okay, so.
Am I right or wrong?
So in order, again, back to Malcolm X's example, you cannot stab someone 9 inches and pull it out 3 inches and expect that wound to heal.
But you can't even live together if the idea is that we're both going to stab each other.
Which is why
that's where Martin Luther King got it right. This is where MLK got it right, and Malcolm X got it wrong.
One of the largest issues in America is white people understanding the struggle of black people, which is why white privilege is a thing.
Why?
Is it not a thing? Is it not? Does that not exist?
What that does is not only does white privilege exist, there's endless amounts of privileges exist.
Oh, I will agree with that.
That's like saying that,
in the context of policy.
Do LeBron James kids have it better than a white person in middle America?
In the context of policy, And
in the context of policy, and this is how you can take one little form and try to denounce your argument. If you're talking about white privilege exists across the spectrum, then does LeBron James kids have it better than a middle class white kids living in America right now making $80,000 a year?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Now, here's where
that
the
doesn't
issue
make mathematical sense.
Here's where the
doesn't even
difference
make
comes
ethical
in.
sense. That doesn't, and this is the problem. That this is, and
You're
we're talking about
out
understanding
one-off situations and expecting it to equal up to what your argument is. Yes, LeBron James's kids have a greater advantage, but
privilege. Privilege, because it's not just white privilege, it's attractive privilege too. Right?
Absolutely. There are so many different
If you're
types of
attractive,
privileges.
you have more things.
But
if you're tall, you have more privilege.
Historically, when it came to policy and developing policy to implement more things moving forward, have there not literally been policies to hold black people down?
I mean, there's.
So how do you reverse that?
What do you mean? How do you reverse that? Because and this is
how do you reverse that?
What
Because
about the people that had? You're
basically saying put it all on the person to catch up for 500 years.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that individual responsibility will help out, because at the end of the day, so then how do you, if that's the case, right? So then let's say second generation immigrants, people who are visibly look more black than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they more successful?
I'm not taking the responsibility out of the black community.
I'm asking you a question.
Absolutely.
Why do they do better than whites? Why? Because of this privilege that you're talking about should stretch across the board. Why do Asians?
It does not stretch across the board.
But you're arguing that white privilege trumps all. Why do Asians do better? Why do Asians do better? Why do black immigrants do better? Why is that?
I'm not arguing that white privilege.
But I'm asking you a question. Why do they do better? Why is that?
Why do they do better? Because they do better community politics than we do. And I'm not disagreeing with that.
How do they trump white privilege? Why is it that they make more money? How is it that Asians and second generation and West Indians and black immigrants do better as a whole than whites, if white privilege trumps everything? And that's what you got to answer for me.
I'm not saying white privilege trumps everything.
Can you answer that question though for me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Why
answer
do they
that?
do better?
Why?
It's a few reasons. It's a few reasons from what I've seen.
Give me a couple.
From what I've seen.
Give me one.
Okay, number one, they do better because they do better community financing. Okay, they keep their dollars.
But how does that
community.
trump white privilege?
How does that trump white privilege?
How?
Because white people have the opportunity to throw money away like we've never had. We've never had that.
You're switching the argument. I'm asking you, like,
I answered your question. I answered your question.
No, you didn't.
If you have $400,000 to throw away, on a home, all right? Let's say you have that money. You were given that by the bank. Mm-hmm. You have that money. I'm coming out of the projects. I don't have that money. Mm-hmm. Somebody else comes in, and they're coming out of the projects. All I know is, I've never had money. I don't know how to spend money. I don't know how to do this, that, and the third. That's my first issue. I will absolutely agree. Black people don't know how to spend money within their own community.
But the question I'm asking you,
your question.
But you're switching it back to what blacks are doing, and I'm asking you a question. If white privilege trumps all,
I'm not saying it trumps all. I'm saying we're behind the eight ball, and you've agreed on that. You have agreed on that.
Of course we are, but I'm saying the factors in that are extensive, well beyond what white privilege even incorporates.
Absolutely, and I'm saying yes, absolutely. We don't do what we need to do to get out of that.
But if white privilege is so prevalent, why is it that whites aren't on the top of the economic scale? Or as a population, why aren't they on the top of the economic scale or the education? I'm asking you.
Because they don't have to be. Because
Asians,
they don't have
second
to be.
Immigration.
If I'm
because they don't have to be. What?
Exactly. Because if I got a 500-year head start and I got $400,000, you come in and you've gained $200,000 in the last year.
By that same metric,
then it's gonna show based on what you said. On what you said.
By that same metric, because Asians didn't have a head start. Asians was working behind them. So then why? Let
me answer the question. Based on what the same argument you used in based on the same argument you used when it came to the LGBT, you said it's going to skew the data based on new metrics coming in that cannot be accounted for. Was that not what you said? If I have $400,000 as a white man that I've gotten from the bank or whatever, and you as an agent come in and the bank gives you $200,000, but I as a black man go and apply and I can't get that same loan based on policy, of course it's going to look like the Asian has jumped above you.
Whoa,
because they got $200,000 for the $400,000 that you've had 4, 5, 6 generations.
Right, but if we're gonna be mathematically and intellectually consistent, then all right. So by the standard of white privilege that you were talking about, but because of white privilege, generally whites should be on top of everything when it comes to economics, and they're not. So I'm asking you, why?
How are they not? How are they not? Do they not run America?
Number one, if you look at the amount as far as the population is concerned, who earns the most money, it is not whites.
Okay, it's not whites because whites are 70% of this country. And you said it yourself. Majority of these middle ground states, they're poor. Come on now. If you're going to use numbers, then let's use the numbers. Whites are 70% of the population.
But even if you use whites as 70% of the population, if you look if you use proportionality into the theme, number one, Asians and immigrants, those are black people. Why are those communities doing, because especially the black immigrants and everybody who is an African and things of that nature, like they should be well aware of how well their particular community does. And as Asians as well, who not only have historically been here, but have also migrated here or you know what I'm saying, or travel here, whatever you want to call it. Why is it that they've automatically been, they're not on the same footing? We're talking about a race, right? We're talking about a race to the end. And at the end of the day, if white people and white privilege has jumped so far ahead to the point where it gives them this much of an advantage, then by that same metric, mathematically, they should be ahead, but they are not. And I'm asking you why they aren't on top.
If you can give me the numbers, and here's where I'm going. If you're going to use the example of a race,
you want the numbers.
The way that I see it is, it's a 1600, 4 laps, right? Black people are still in the first lap. White people are on the third lap, and immigrants are on the second lap. If black people and immigrants started on the same lap, and everybody's going around the circle, white people have already got a lap ahead of us. Immigrants, for whatever reason, and when I say for whatever reason, I mean within their own community, they have the ability to get ahead further than we do.
Why?
Now, and why is that? Why is that better?
Even black immigrants. Why? They come across, they're visually black people. They have the same stigmas that are attributed to them as black Americans. Then why is that? Why is it that they do better?
I will absolutely admit that it is community financing. They will absolutely keep their dollar within their community. I will absolutely agree with that. I will absolutely say.
But then white privilege doesn't trump all then.
I've never said it trumped all. I said it was a very large factor in what got them to be where they are.
Of course, but what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, if we're talking about the things, if you're basing the reasons why we haven't progressed, especially as things have become more egalitarian in our side of the world and across the globe in general, then it doesn't, what you're talking about doesn't explain why it is that immigrants and Asians do better. And I think that, and for me, this is my answer. The reason is because the culture itself promotes and enforces productivity and a focus on building within that particular community. And
Absolutely. I will agree with that.
That trumps all privilege that is associated. So you can bring up privilege that you're talking.
I will absolutely agree with that, and that's what I've been saying.
What are you bringing up white privilege for if it doesn't make, if it's not the determining factor? I'm not saying it's not a factor. I'm saying it's not. It's not the end all be all factor.
So what you're basically saying is, if it's not a problem, then don't. If it's not a huge problem, then don't deal with it.
We should be 90%.
That's basically what you're saying.
Absolutely. I think that we should be 90% focused on our own community and not focused on what white privilege is or how
then why the fuck vote?
I don't give a shit about voting. I don't give two fucks about it. My whole thing about it is that, number one, my whole idea when we started this was talking about taking these ideas and enforcing them within our own community. And that's my whole idea. Like, I don't particularly believe that the way we're going to get to success is by fighting the government to give us what we think like we deserve. And even when you bring up white privilege, I believe that's a fucking distraction on the real task at hand. And the task at hand is to.
I'm saying that if
what if white privilege is so irrelevant, which we see that at the end of the day, what's really relevant is our culture and what we promote in the community. That dictates.
Okay, well then here's why. Here's why I say
that's
that.
my point.
Here's why
that's
I
my
say
fucking
that.
point.
Here's why I say that's very, very relevant. Because if we were on an even keel, then maybe we could reverse some of the generational psychological damage that has been done. We have been taught.
Who is ever on an even keel though? Like in any society that's ever been.
What's the point of trying anything?
No,
what's the point of doing anything?
Exactly. If you expect to be on an even keel, number one, society in general isn't on an even keel. Like when you're born to different economic circumstances and social circumstances that everybody has to deal with. So at the end of the day, to expect that you're going to be on an even keel in life is a false premise, and it's entitlement to its core, because at the end of the day, you aren't entitled to live on any keel.
I would absolutely
so then what do we
absolutely
so when we focus on white privilege, when we focus on all these other things, we're only distracting ourselves from
I would absolutely agree with that.
We're only distracting ourselves from what we really need to focus on, which is responsibility within ourselves.
The answer that I've always stood with, and this is something that I've gotten a lot of flack from the black community in, or people within the black community. The issue that I've had, okay, perfect example. The reason why I feel like
David.
No, I gotta say the reason why I feel like black people will never be equal is because, like, perfect example.
You say white people would never be equal?
No. Let me explain this. Perfect example.
Hey, pass me that juice over there. I'm getting fucking parched out this bitch. I've been rapping like a mother.
Yeah, perfect example. The NFL boycott. All right. I took that example and I got reamed by everybody because I said that it was absolutely pointless. The NFL boycott was absolutely pointless because knowing business enough to know that, number one, we were never the NFL's target market. The NFL's target market has always been white middle America. It's like trying to boycott NASCAR. We're not going to get their ear on that. Now, that being said, I said the only way that we as black people can get anywhere, we need to stop being happy with developing businesses and start progressing to the point where we develop industry. So we can't expect to move forward as a community if we don't have our own. And when I say that, I don't mean, we need our own hair salon, we need our own nail salon, we need our own barbershop, we need our own corner store. I'm saying we need black people to develop the next Amazon. We need black people to develop the next Hilton Hotel.
Why?
No, hold on.
Why?
Why is that?
Why?
Why is that? It's because why do we need that? Because that's how you pull up a community. That's how you pull up a community. If we had our own Wells Fargo.
That doesn't make sense.
No, listen.
That doesn't make sense.
How does it not make sense?
Elon Musk is white. Like the owner of Amazon is white. A lot of these billionaires are white, but they haven't pulled white people up to the fact that they're the highest.
Because they didn't have to. They were already ahead.
But they're not ahead.
That's my point.
But they're not ahead, are they?
They are.
Are they ahead?
The reason why
Are they ahead?
They
no.
are. They are.
No, they're not.
They
no,
are.
they're not.
Politically
Asians
and
are ahead.
socially.
Asians are ahead. Economically
white people are
and
absolutely.
socially. Asians are ahead. And what's the name? The statistics are out.
Okay.
The statistics are out. The motherfuckers that earn the most are Asians and first generation immigrants.
Okay, and that's great.
They're
that's
not
great.
ahead.
That's great.
So
but
this
how
nigga
has that,
Amazon,
okay,
all of that shit don't
okay,
make shit.
That is great. But how? Okay, that is great. But how you affect change is to build up your community. Period. If we had our own Wells Fargo, if we had our own Hilton Hotel,
just saying that's gonna bring us ahead. And these people, like you just said, like you were making a point as if build a black person being in these industries, just like a black person being the president, it's gonna somehow put us on the top and put us as a community ahead. No, it's
you
not.
You have to do it with.
That's not gonna do it because we've seen that's not gonna do it because the reality is what puts people ahead is a real focus is their actual perception and their real focus in their community, and that's what really brings people ahead. That's why Asians are in front.
But you didn't let
that's why Joes are in front.
Because
but you're making these claims as
because it's more
if
than
you
just
rule
the
industry,
economic.
if you rule
It's
industry, then white people are going to be on top.
But listen,
white people rule industry and they're not on top.
But listen, because it's more than just having the industry. It's seeing that.
Or it's not even about that at all.
You didn't even let me finish.
Sorry.
It's more than that. Okay, what do you think it did for a white person to grow to be born back in 18 whatever the fuck and say, yo, I'm gonna hand you 300 acres of land.
Number one, let
me finish.
Because you're saying a false statement. The reality is that all white people, when they talk about the motherfuckers who own slaves and that wasn't all white people. That was the elite. The elite were the people that owned slaves.
Absolutely.
The majority of white people were poor as fuck. And they used the people that were the elitists, used the racial narrative in order to hold down the white people and make them feel like they were somehow bigger than the black man, when in reality I'm screwing you over and I'm screwing the black man over.
And that's still going on. Now,
so then what are you talking about?
But that being said, what does that, when it came down to hiring someone for a job, what did that do when it came down to either hiring a poor black person or a poor white person?
You said, what did that have to do with either?
No, I'm saying, what did that do for their community to be able to hire either a poor black person or a poor white person when the elite that you just said had that opportunity to do so? And there were policy in place to do that. So I'm a rich white person. I'm the founder. I'm fucking Wells Fargo. And just like you said, I did it for me. I did it for the elite white. But I need to hire somebody for a job. I have either a poor black person or a poor white person. Who am I going to pick? I'm going to pull the poor white person out. And policy and governmental American government policy has always led to that.
See, but and even like see, and then you're even looking at the policy from a two-dimensional level. Because the reality is, if I make this job, if I put the white person in control, if I put the white person as, like, let's say the manager, for example, that's what they did on the railroads. They said, okay, white people, we're going to bring in these Asian immigrants and you will be the managers and things of that nature. But what they did essentially was they didn't hire the white motherfuckers. What they did was they hired the Asian motherfuckers at a lower pay scale and then shitted on the white people that were already here out of countless jobs and just put a few of them at higher positions that they didn't even pay that much of a difference for. So my whole idea is that, like, this is the problem, is that we look at motherfuckers who had it a little bit better than us, and we come to this conclusion like they're all looped together in this systemic and long historic conspiracy against each other. And the fact remains is that we have a lot more in common than we have separate, and that the reality is that if we all focused on being the better person, the things that we can control, if we all focused on being a better person, being a nicer person, working harder, and then incorporating that in our community, that will do that would be way more productive than focusing on who has more privilege.
Okay, so
or
so
who
then
had
so
it
then
worse
when
back in
do
the
we
day.
ever then when do we ever address that issue, if ever?
I think that like there's room for that.
Well, then when do we have that discussion?
We've
when
had
do we
that
have
discussion.
that discussion?
That's been the discussion for the last 50 years.
Has it? Because it hasn't gotten anywhere.
Has it not? Has it not? Like when you're saying we're not getting anywhere, this is another fallacy that people tend to promote. So you're acting as if there was no, like a lot of, and this happens in the conscious community as well. You're acting as if there's been no progression in the black community, and that's just not true. The reality is that black unemployment is as low as it's ever been. The amount of black people that are in the middle class, you could say proportionally,
Absolutely.
the amount of black people that are in poverty versus in the middle class is higher than it's ever been. And I'm not saying that to fucking be a pro-Trump motherfucker, but I'm saying that as that's a statistical fact.
I mean,
but what that
I find
means
that is more layover from Obama's administration. That's
what? That don't even make sense. Obama's only in office for 8 years. You're saying that his 8 years contributed to the actual.
I mean, it's done more than the last two.
What do you base that on? What policies do you base that on?
I mean, what I'm saying is,
what policies do you base that on?
If I'm gonna point the finger at anything, I'm gonna say, yo, I mean, because he was the one who took what was left over from 2008 and revitalized the auto industry. Revitalize the American economy.
No, he had taxpayers bail out the auto industry and bail out the financial market. Those same taxpayers. So I don't see how that contributes to him fucking shooting up the middle class as it was. Now,
so would you say that it's been Trump over these last 2 years?
Hell no.
That's what I'm saying. That's
so just because Trump didn't do it, that means Obama gets all the credit?
I mean, who the fuck did it then?
No, I think that it was as we progressed as a society, as things started becoming just a little bit more egalitarian, black people, and give black people some fucking credit. We started jumping up in these jobs.
Oh, yeah.
We started working hard and getting in these joints. You know what I'm saying? Black women, motherfucking, you could say whatever the fuck you want, but black women like fucking took the goddamn helms.
Yeah,
they realized they jumped up in the healthcare system. They educated themselves. They did all of that. They did that. You know what I'm saying? We did that as individuals together. We did that. You know what I'm saying? So to think that somehow Obama's responsible or Trump is responsible or Clinton is responsible is a problem. And I think that and if we focus on what the government is going to do for us, that is a way, that's the sleight of hand. They talk about magicians.
Okay.
That's a sleight of hand that people use.
Literally no point in voting. If all you can control is your personal self, your family, do what work you can do into the community.
You will make much more of an impact.
Oh yeah,
whether
much
you don't
more.
vote.
But what about that? When do we talk about that other percentage? That's my whole point.
I mean, number one, there's a problem with our system in general.
Then when do we talk about
there shouldn't be a president. In my opinion, there shouldn't be a president. There should be a council of people that go over things. But even then, my whole purpose for this particular podcast was just to kind of lay out some of the arguments and just let us tell each other. I think that we need to understand that we all have something to contribute, and that just because
absolutely.
we all have ideas. I'm not saying that you did.
I'm not saying when do we talk about that other part?
I'm saying that, like, even if we're talking about if we're gonna talk about what happened in the past and where we're gonna what things are holding us back, that should be probably out of 10. If we had 10 conversations, that should probably be some 1. Maybe 10% about conversations.
Okay, so when
because what's more effective
is the answer to that? Because
the answer is individual responsibility.
So it never goes into anything outside of yourself.
I think that's where it starts.
Okay, so no, not where it starts. Let's talk about the whole conversation, because
if you just individually focus on your life and try to best
then
yourself,
there's no point in having any form of political system
that's not necessarily
that you contribute to.
That's not
if all you focus in on is yourself. That's basically what you're saying. If
you're an individual and you work hard and you live your life ethically and you focus on bringing yourself up, and then through bringing yourself up, you bring your family up, and then try to bring up your community, that's way more productive than focusing on what everybody else should be doing.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
But you're presenting 1,000 arguments as to why I should focus on something else.
I'm saying, when do you focus on things that you can't control? That you should, that according to you said
all the psychologists think that you should rarely ever think about things that you can't control.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I go to therapy, and I'm sure I know you do as well. So focusing on things that you can't control is a dead fucking way of looking at this.
So what you're basically saying then? So what you're basically saying is, again, back to what we initially said, voting is a waste of time, because you can't. Number one, no, because you can barely control who gets in office. You can barely control what they can do. And you definitely can't control how it contributes to you, your family, and your community.
I think that voting takes a very small amount of your time. And I think that at the end of the day, you should vote where your values, where the politician itself presents the values that you represent, no matter what party, and you should vote for them.
And I can absolutely agree with that.
But the main focus of your life shouldn't be that.
But that was not the initial conversation that we were having here. It's what black people, or at least what I understood,
talking about conservatism in the black community.
Conservatism in the black community.
It has its place.
I'm not saying it doesn't. I never said it doesn't. I'm saying, when it comes to voting, what should we do?
All right, I understand what you're saying. Look, we're talking in circles, and we could literally do this until 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody, for listening. We will obviously get back with other topics. Thank you, Will. Where can people follow you at, Will, man?
Man, like, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at I12Sing. I, number 1, number 2, Sing. I mean,
that's it. You want to drop a little 8 bars for him?
I mean, I'll do a little something. I'll do a little something. You know me. You know me.
I'm just playing, but go ahead. If you want to drop some bars for him, man, go ahead and drop some bars for him, man. We'll end on the bars.
Let's see.
Do some Stevie Wonder, how you always do.
Shut up, yo.
It's like, nah, that's like
I see us in the park, strolling the summer days of imaginings in my head, and words from my heart, told only to the wind.
What up,
felt even without being said. And I don't want to bore you with my troubles. There's something about your love that makes me weak and knocks me off my feet. There's something about your love that makes me weak and knocks me off my feet. Knocks me off my feet.
Ah, man, I hear you, bro. That shit lit as a mother.
Yeah. My man, 100 grand, since we get into it. We debate. He definitely has some good points. I like to think I had a few, you know what I'm saying? But you know, we get into it. He made some good points. You know, and I can definitely understand his perspective. I want to know when we having that conversation, if ever.
About what?
What we was talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when are we having that conversation? But
thank everybody for listening, man.
Yeah.
It's our first time we done went out on Stevie Wonder, man.
Yeah.
I don't sing, baby.
He was, what was you, lead mic, second mic?
I know,
Evolution?
Yeah. Right.
He knocks me off my feet.
It's something about your love, baby. I see you, Tori.
What's going on,
What up,
Tori?
Darius?
How you been?
Thank everybody for watching out. Thank everybody for listening to us, man.
This is about to be a long-ass podcast.